Hi, Mark.
Hey, everybody. Hi, Madeline. Good to see you. Hey, Paul. Hi, Audrey.
Question.
Yeah.
That link you sent us to vote, you gonna direct us to do it and we just click on it and then just, okay,
Yep. The elections committee will handle that part of the meeting.
okay.
Hey, Shelley.
Hello.
Evening. Hello.
Hi, Michelle.
Hello, Madeline. How you been?
I'm here. How you doing?
All right. I'm enjoying the weather.
Oh yeah, you got something good out of that.
Uh-huh. It's nice only to have to wear comfortable shoes.
Oh, true.
You keeping busy or what?
I'm too afraid to go out. I take my dog out in the morning. If I got personal business, I'm back in. People are not cooperating around here with the mask.
We are live streaming. I just want to let you know.
Hello, world.
So I'm trying to keep quiet.
It's a challenge.
Yeah.
I'm getting ready for the election. I'm working the polls. I'm doing all this training and stuff.
Oh, God bless you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Early election and regular election.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's gonna be tough.
We're gonna vote early.
Yeah.
If I can't wait one more minute.
I know. I know. They talking about a month. It's a month to go. I go, oh my God. Oh.
Speaking of elections, I'll refrain from naming the person, Linda, who voted already and ignored the instructions and voted twice.
Oh, really?
Oh.
So
Well, you know we don't follow directions.
I just deleted all of the prior votes.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Rich, you expected us to follow the rules?
Only if you want your vote to count.
There you go.
I'm trying to keep the vote open, fair, and secure.
Hi, Mark. How you doing?
Hey there. Hi, Polly. Good to see you.
Okay. How you
Hi,
doing,
Bev.
Michelle? Hello, everyone. Hi, Shelley. Hello. Hello, Madeline. How you doing?
Gotta unmute myself. How you doing, Polly?
I'm doing great.
Polly always has a good background. Not as good as Chris. Not as good as Christian with the waves crashing on the beach, but
Oh,
still.
yeah.
No. I wish I knew how to set the background in Zoom, like on some sessions. I see people have different backgrounds, but I haven't learned how to master that yet.
I was just gonna ask you, Polly, because I've been trying
Yeah.
to do it as well.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to go back to
So,
your
you know, this will
profile,
have
I
to-
think.
Huh?
Oh, that's what it is? Okay.
Yeah,
What is it, Michelle?
you go back to your profile.
I
and it might
did.
give you-
Overnight.
I did all that. I even went on YouTube to try to find out. I gave up.
Me too.
I'm gonna try again tomorrow.
Oh no.
I did the same thing. I don't know. I guess, you know, I need somebody to walk me through it.
Well, someone told me my computer is not up to date. That I get a newer model, I could be able to do that. I don't think that's possible. I think you could download something and access that. I don't know. I'm going to find out. Rich, what do you think?
Yeah, yeah.
Depends how old the computer is.
Oh,
Okay.
Wait,
Yeah. Yeah, I
Not a-
saw someone who captured a picture and he just put it in the background and that was it. It wasn't complicated. I don't know.
oh, really?
It shouldn't
Mhm.
matter for
Yeah.
Zoom.
Yeah.
I'm going to try that. I
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
try that one.
who
Yeah.
knows where early voting is in our district?
I do because I'm working it.
Where is it?
West Side High.
Oh,
Good.
convenient.
Yeah.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah,
See you soon.
Okay.
not till October
Yeah.
24th.
Right.
Ah,
Right.
October 24th. Okay.
Right.
Right.
There's different times. Go online and get the different times. Every day
Right.
is different.
It covers a lot of different times. It's very good, but I think it's going to be very crowded.
Oh, boy.
In the
I
lower
think so,
part of the
too.
district, it's at the atrium at Lincoln Center for the lower part of the district.
Oh, good to know.
You're better off going to Philadelphia.
Ah, what time are the polls opening, Madeline?
One is at 10, one is at 7, different times, different days.
7 in the morning, like 7?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Earlier?
And then it closes like at 3. And then it's
Okay.
10 to 4. If I can remember the others.
12
I
to
have
8. It depends on the day.
right.
Almost every day is different.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, folks,
So it's
I'm
staggered.
going to start the webinar, which means that the attendees will now start to file in, and hopefully we will start to record. Or maybe,
Why would anyone vote in person? It's so easy to vote by mail.
Ah.
I've already voted.
Only if you live near a creek, apparently.
And then my guy got the coronavirus, so
Do we have an hour to discuss that issue?
Okay. Okay. Well, folks are starting to file in. We had nearly 200 people register for this meeting, so it's going to be a trick trying to get in as many people who want to comment as possible, but we'll do our best. Welcome, everybody. Let's give a few seconds for
Hi, Mark.
give a few seconds for folks to file in as attendees.
I hope they're all wearing masks.
You're so funny, Ken.
Governor had some interesting words this afternoon on that subject. I will leave it to the governor to repeat them, but it was quite a performance.
I didn't hear it. I'd like to hear it. Tell me another time.
Another time, yes.
That good. Hmm.
Okay, people are still filing in as attendees. So I'm going to give them about 2 more minutes, and then I'm going to say hello, and then we'll have a very brief public service announcement, and then we'll get to our business session. I'm assuming our secretaries have worked out between them who's doing the minutes. Thank you. Okay, it's 6:32. I'm going to call us to order here. We are recording, we are live streaming, and I am welcoming you all to Community Board 7's October full board meeting. Just a recap of the agenda, which was online. Essentially, we have our business session first, where we do matters that relate to the applications that we are charter mandated to pursue or follow up on, and those areas in which our committees have been active. A little bit of an unusual practice for us this evening is that we have a report from, originally it was going to be from the 20th Precinct Commanding Officer Neil Zuber, but in fact both the 20th and the 24th Precinct's commanding officers, so Deputy Inspector Yaguchi, as well as Captain Zuber, will be with us. And that's going to be more or less at 7:30 p.m., assuming their duties allow that timing, but I'm given to understand that they will. What we're going to do is hear from each of the commanding officers, and then we're going to allow 30 minutes for public comment specifically related to those reports. There'll be a public session toward the end of the meeting, as we usually do, but we wanted to do this as a way to accommodate the police officers and to make sure that there was an opportunity for some public comment while the commanding officers were with us, so that if there were questions, that they could be there to answer them and then wouldn't have to try to, leave and then come back or what have you. So that is more or less the plan for the night. We will work in our board officer election process into the business session, either before or after, depending on how well we do with time. You will hear me moving everybody along tonight. I'm going to try to get as much time as we can to hear from as many of our constituents as we can. I have a public service announcement. Some of you may remember last year there was a generous way in which a community member was making Thanksgiving happy for a lot of families and was recruiting volunteers. Jason Haber is with us, and I'm going to call on him right now, who I believe will be asking for volunteers again. Jason, take it away.
Hi everyone, thanks so much, Mark, for having me here.
Jason, you're kind of scratchy there. Is there a try it again?
Can you hear me now, Mark? Is that okay?
It's a little scratchy, so cut to the chase.
So we're giving out turkeys again this year. We're going to try to do it. It's going to be a challenge.
You can come back on later. I mean, shut down and come back on, and it'll bring it back up normal.
I wonder if the issue is with the Bluetooth earphones.
Yeah, hang on a second. What I can do is I can dump the Bluetooth. Let's try to deal with that. How about that?
Might that be better?
Oh, yeah. A lot better. Thank you very much. And thank you.
Let's go very fast here. So every year, my family and I give out turkeys for Thanksgiving to members of the community. This year, we're aiming to feed 5,000 people for Thanksgiving. It's going to be an enormous logistical challenge because of COVID, but we are working with Goddard Riverside to find a way to pull it off. Last year, we had some great volunteers from CB7. If anyone wants to volunteer this year in a safe way, you can email me, jason@jasonhaber.com, and we're going to try to figure out a way to make this work. It's not a guarantee yet, but we have a plan kind of in place right now, and hopefully we'll be able to pull this off. We don't take donations. It's just something I pay for, my family pays for, but if you'd like to help volunteer, let me know.
Jason, if you would put your email in the chat, yes, so that folks can find it. And I assume that's the way to get details as to where and when.
Absolutely. It'll be Tuesday, the 24th, all day. It takes about 6-7 hours to give them out.
Fantastic. Thank you. And thank you on behalf of the community for what a great thing that is.
Thank you, Mark.
Thus endeth the public service announcement. Let's get to our business session. And first up is the Preservation Committee, Kay and Michelle.
Michelle has our resolution tonight.
Very good.
Thank you. This application at 26 West 95th Street was for a rooftop addition, a rear facade extension, a rear yard excavation, and a stoop restoration. This application was already heard at LPC this morning, and I presented our resolution, and Mark was at the meeting as well. So I guess I should start. You see on the left, the far left, the building really has, they really removed all of the facade that makes it look like the building that it was when it was built between 1892 and 1893. It's a neo-Greek Renaissance revival row house, but it doesn't look like that now. So they want to, what they want to do is put the stoop back in, but it will be a straight stoop as opposed to an L-shaped stoop. And they got approval for the straight stoop on the theory that a straight stoop is better than no stoop at all, but there was some conversation about an L-shaped stoop, which both at the committee, the Preservation Committee level and the landmarks level, there was talk about how hard it would be to do that, given that there's a tree pit. I think the tree is about at least 60 feet high now. It's a humongous tree. It would cost a lot of money to and maybe even kill the tree to move the tree and tree pit. But more importantly, and therefore they couldn't put the L-shaped stoop in because it would not be ADA accessible. So LPC approved a straight stoop. With respect to the rear yard, the backyard, the applicant wants to fill in the L-shaped yard with to have it continuously go across the backyard. And that was approved, and the applicants, they worked with us. They were very, they compromised well, I thought. They agreed to install metal railings instead of glass railings and keep the fenestration, that is how the windows are placed, the same, and use the same material that was used for the rest of the original building. With respect to a rear yard Mark, did you want to say something about that? I see a quizzical look on your face.
Oh, no, that's just me.
Okay.
You're doing great.
With respect to the backyard excavation, what they wanted to do is remove some soil and bring the backyard to code and install 6-foot wooden fence. And they agreed to install planting beds and an overflow drain to capture water runoff at the perimeter, on the perimeter of the building, of the yard, excuse me. They agreed not to install spot or floodlights, if they thought about that in the future, but rather something called night sky lighting. With respect to the, so 1, 2, 3, did I cover everything? Hold on. Yeah, I think with respect to the rooftop, yes. At LPC, the rooftop was approved with modifications. Oh, sorry, let me backtrack a little. The rear yard fill-in was approved with a modification that the applicant work with the LPC staff to reduce the height of the addition 1 story. And that would make it uneven with the present L-shaped extension, but we'll let them work it out because they're the experts. With respect to the rooftop, we approved that at committee and it was approved with a modification at LPC. This rooftop cannot be seen from the street. And it is an approval where the materials would be brownstone colored stucco in the front and brick to match the rear facade on the back with a roof height of 10 foot 4 inches. What LPC, their approval was contingent on pulling back the rooftop, I think in the front and the back. They wanted a smaller footprint on the roof. I don't know, Kay, you want to say something or anybody on the committee?
I think that summarizes it.
Yeah. The only thing I'll add is that the reason we're voting on this, even though because LPC voted on it earlier today, is that it is important for the Preservation Committee's work to have its own body of precedent to refer to. So this is not wasted effort. It's important that we are internally consistent, and therefore that's why we're putting it on tonight's agenda and letting it go forward, even though LPC beat us to the punch.
Yeah, if I may say, the block is a beautiful block. This building is empty. And it's a single family that's going to be living there. So it'll be an asset to the community and the block. And we met the owners of the building and they seem like menschy kind of people. It'll be great.
Very good. So is there anybody who has a question on this?
Mark, can I just add to what you said? Mark?
Go ahead.
Just, I didn't want you to give the impression that even though we were considering this after LPC has acted, that they didn't get anything from the board. So just for the record, the committee disposition of the application and vote, et cetera, was before the commission.
That's right.
For the hearing.
That's right. And
Yes,
I spoke as well.
And they made changes to their presentation after the committee, as Michelle said. Looks like Jeanette has her hand up.
Yes, it sounds like all good. I was just curious, with the stoop going straight out, is there a constraint on the sidewalk width?
Yes. That big tree, not with a straight stoop. That there will be no constraint on the sidewalk with a straight stoop. With an L-shaped stoop, there would have been, because because the tree in the tree pit, that massive tree in the tree pit there would not be enough space between the L-shaped stoop and the tree pit. But with a straight stoop, there's no problem. The tree pit's not in the way, or not.
But the stoop goes out far enough that there's still plenty of room for pedestrians to bypass, walk by. That was my question.
Yes,
Right.
that's right. There it is as a straight.
Great.
Yes.
Okay.
Looks like Richard Ash has his hand up.
Yeah, just a suggestion that, because this arises frequently with this committee, that if LPC is considering a matter after the committee votes and before the full board, that the board be circularized about it to see if anyone has any salient comments, just so that we know about it in advance rather than arrears.
Okay.
Very good.
Yeah, thank you. We'll make sure that happens.
Hey,
But you have to remind me a few times.
yeah, I mean, it sounds like a great project, but you know,
Yeah.
just
Good people.
some of them aren't.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
And it
Thank
looks like Jay has his hand up.
Just following up on what Jeanette said, I believe that the applicant said that originally LPC staff had approved the L-shaped front stoop, but that DOT, which has the final word on the distance between tree pits, et cetera, would not approve it, and that's why they went to the straight stoop.
Yeah, you're right, Jay. Not only that, DOT, ADA would have to be consulted if there was the L-shaped stoop, as you said. It wouldn't be ADA accessible if it was an L shape. And there was somebody, LPC, DOT, oh, and Parks had something to say about the tree. It would have been a very costly, it would have been a costly venture for the owner. And thank you for bringing that up.
Okay, I say Rich Robbins, and then maybe we can vote.
Yeah, I just want to, I know I've spoken out a number of times against enlargements of brownstones, especially as the victim of one. These have great impact, both on the row of houses, and this looks on Google Maps like a completely untouched row of houses, but also on the so-called donut in the back, where it greatly impacts neighbors. And I just feel that there's no need to enlarge these brownstones, especially if it's a full house. If you want a huge building, don't get a brownstone, don't taint with our neighborhood. And I'm sure they're very nice people, but it just sets a really bad precedent. And I think we should just always oppose enlarging up or back brownstones just because of the impact they have. So I'm voting against it, and I hope everyone else does as well. And especially if we don't, if Landmarks has already acted, I think it's just good for us to set the precedent of doing so.
May I respond to that? If you look at the map of the donuts on the block, there are many L-shaped extensions to the brownstones. And in addition to that, there are one or two buildings brownstones that built a separate structure at the tail end of the yard, coming from the rear toward the building. So that was particularly unattractive, but some people got approval to do that.
Okay, so let's vote. Let's call the question. I'm going to do this one by just a raise of hands. So if you can raise your hand virtually, the blue hand, please do so now for a yes. If you have to raise your hand physically, I will scan now. I have to raise my hand physically, so I'm voting in favor. Let's see. Let's let the hands calm down for a second, and then I'll take the physical hands.
Mark, I do see 2 hands raised by attendees who are not board members. I don't know if they wanted to speak about this.
Oh,
we're not speaking, we are voting.
Well, no, but Rich is right. I'm sorry, hands down. We didn't call on the community for this matter. So if you wanted to speak on this matter in the chat, Rich, would you put it in again, please? In the chat, there's a sign up form to sign up to speak tonight. If you wanted to speak on this matter, please do follow the link and sign up right now. Although I see the hands are now down. If anybody wants to speak on this matter as an attendee, please raise your blue hand now, and we'll call on you, and otherwise we're going to vote. Nope, I'm not seeing it. Okay, let's go on with the vote then. So please raise your hand. If all those in favor, please raise your hand. And if you have to raise your hand physically like I do, we will then get to you after that. So I see a lot of blue hands, and let's see. I vote yes. I see Peter Sampton voting yes is 2. Shelley is 3.
Audrey is 4.
Ethel is 4. Audrey is Audrey?
Yes,
No.
yes, I'm right next to you in the gallery.
Okay. Linda Alexander is 6. Doug Clyman is 7. I already got Ethel. And I think that's all the virtual hands. So I have 7 plus
Peter and Doug McGowan.
Oh, Doug McGowan. Thank you. I had Peter, but I didn't have Doug McGowan. Thank you. And I have that.
Mark, 8. I have my hand raised.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Robert. That's 9.
Did you get Louisa?
And Louisa's 10. Thank you. Okay. Okay. So that's 10 plus 29 is 39 in favor.
Paul Fisher in the chats votes, he approves.
Thank you. That's 40. That's yes. Okay. So now, let's see. All hands are lowered. All those against, please raise your hand, either the physical or the virtual. Oh. I don't know if you're getting this, but as people raise their hands, the Brady Bunch screen changes on me. So forgive me, it takes a couple seconds for it to calm down. All right, so I see 4 blue hands. I'm looking for Rich because I'm sure he's voting no. There he is. Rich is no. I'm looking for other physical hands. And I don't see them. So I have 1 plus 4 is 5 against. Hands down now again, please. Is anybody abstaining? And I don't see anybody abstaining. And no one is ineligible for cause, right? Nope. So I have 40 to 5 to 0 to 0. Does that work? Julian's saying yes. Thank you. And that's all we have for preservation tonight. So I say thank you to preservation. And Linda Alexander is going to take the helm for BCI. Our colleague Christian Cordova is out with a family emergency.
So if anyone wants to know more about it, we can, Christian lost his father on Friday, so he won't be with us. If anyone wants to send him a condolence card, we all have each other's addresses. So next, the first from 2 to 5, they're pretty pro forma. So just to go over them, 373 Amsterdam Avenue was La Bella. 225 Restaurant Corp was, God, what was it? Oh, it was Bistro Cassis. 201 West 106 will be a Mexican restaurant, and it used to be Ellington's, which will now be in the former Henry's. So this is all good news, guys. And then 2 West 69th Street. We know there's no restaurant at 2 West 69th Street because it's Le Pain Quotidien, and it is in the park, but they needed an address. So those are the first, the 4 SLA applications. If there's anyone who would like to comment, otherwise I recommend we bundle.
Let's do it. Any questions? Whoops, that looks like there's somebody in the attendees. Peter Arnson.
Hi, just let Linda know that it's a Mexican couple, but they're serving American food.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that, Peter.
And they're open tonight if you are so inclined.
Probably, I got a feeling this meeting will last longer than their open hours, but go ahead.
Okay, well, shall we call the question, folks?
Yes.
Yes, let's call the question.
All in favor?
And we're voting on all of these at once, right? So blue hands up if you can, physical hands if you can't.
Okay, I can't,
Okay.
where are blue hands tonight? Are they in the Q&A?
They're under participant.
God, I'm totally out of it today.
All right, so physical hands, I have Mark Diller. I have, let me see, SLA 1. So I have Mark Diller, I have Rich Robbins, I have Shelley Fine, Peter Sampton, Doug McGowan is 5. Louisa Craddock is 6. I see Ethel is 7. Doug Clyman is 8.
Audrey Isaacs is 9.
Audrey is 9. Thank you. Anybody else? Paul Fisher, are you?
Yeah, it's 10.
Robert is 10. Thank you. And Paul Fisher, are you a yes? Looks like you are. That's 11. I have 11 plus 33 is 44. We'll call that the vote. And lower hands. And now we're going to say anybody opposed. Do I see any opposed? Either physical or blue hands? I'm not seeing any. Okay, so that's a 0. Anybody abstaining? And I'm not seeing any hands of any variety. And is anybody ineligible for cause? Doug, Andrew, no, okay. So I have 44 to 0 to 0 to 0. Linda, let's go to the next one, 15
Okay.
West End Avenue.
Okay, here we go. 15 West End Avenue is Morton Williams. And so they had a beer and wine license, and they're going to expand it to a full liquor license because they feel that their shoppers can use that. So we didn't have a problem with it, and so I hope you don't either. So if anyone would like to speak, please do so. If not, I suggest we call to question.
Just look, quick opportunity for anybody in the public to weigh in. Not seeing it. So let's call the question. All those in favor, please raise your hand now. Use the virtual hand if you can, and if not, the physical hand. And for physical hands, I have Mark Diller, Shelley Fine is 2. Let's see, why is this moving around? Doug Clyman is 3. Doug McGowan is 4. Nice of the Dougs to be together. Peter Sampson is 5. Rich Robbins is 6. Louisa is 7. Looks like Audrey is 8.
Paul Fisher also.
Paul Fisher is 9. Thank you. Robert SBA, am I missing you?
Yes, you are. So I'm raised the blue hand.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you for that. So I have 9 plus 32 is 41. Okay. Let's go to lower hands. Thank you. Anybody opposed? I see 1 opposed. And any physical hands? I see no physical hands, so 1 opposed. And anybody abstaining? I don't see any abstain either way, physical or virtual. And is anybody ineligible for cause? So I have 41 to 1 to 0 to 0 on that one. Very good. And the last BCI?
BCI is our former colleague, Jeff Bank, made an application for Carmine's. He's taking the space next door, directly next door, the contiguous space to Carmine's, and they'll be doing takeout, but they were also applying for a full liquor license. We thought that was a great idea. I hope everybody else does too. So does anyone have a comment about that? I implore you to read our BCI minutes if you have any reservations or questions.
I'm not seeing any hands. Are we ready to call the question?
Is there anybody from the public?
No, no one signed up. No one raised their hand.
Very good. Rich, if you would put the sign-up sheet again into the chat every now and again, that would be great. Thank you. Meanwhile, we're going to vote on 2450 Broadway, Carmine's.
Just a clarification.
I'm sorry, go ahead, what?
Just a clarification. They already have a full liquor, but their extension into the contiguous space necessitates the application just so that they can serve in that space, but it's not, they already have a full liquor. They're just extending their physical footprint. That's all.
Okay, very good.
Very quickly, I just want to say Doug took the minutes to BCI. He's been crazy busy. He came through like a trooper. There were perfect minutes, and thank you, Doug Clyman. Okay, let's call it.
Way to go. All right, so I'm voting.
With that being said, Doug should do it all the time.
Yes, the reward for hard work is hard work. Okay, so voting, let's see. So in terms of physical hands, let's do it again. I've got Mark Diller, I've got Shelley Fine, I've got Peter Sampton, I've Rich Robbins. We're jumping around again here. Let's see, Louisa, I've got Doug Clyman is 6, Doug McGowan is 7, Robert is 8. I'm looking for
Paul
Audrey.
Fisher.
Paul Fisher is 9. Thank you. Audrey, are you a yes?
Yes,
Looks like you are.
yes.
That's 10. And I don't see any others. If I haven't called your name and you're not blue, then I missed you. So I have 31 plus 10 is 41. And let's lower those hands. Okay, anybody opposed, either virtually or otherwise?
Pretty good.
I don't see any. I'm not seeing any. Okay, so that's a 0. Anybody abstaining? Ethel is abstaining, that's 1. Anybody else? I think that's it. Is 1. And anybody, thank you for reminding me to remind you. Oh, Madge, I'm sorry, Madge, are you voting? Madge, are you voting abstain? Madge, I'm sorry, what's your vote? Are you voting to abstain? Madge Rosenberg? All right, well, the vote I have right now is 41-0 to 1-0. If somebody could follow up with Madge and adjust the vote, if that's an error, please let me know. But I want to move us along. So I'm going to say thank you to BCI and call on, it's transportation next, right? Yeah. So Andrew and Howard, take it away.
Okay, I'm going to take this resolution. Many of you have seen us advocate over the years for a curb extension at the southwest corner of 96th and West End. It's a very dangerous place. Cars are flashing by going to and from the Henry Hudson Parkway. PS 75 is at the corner. There's turns happening in every direction. It's a zoo. We have asked for curb extensions, and DOT has told us the only way you get one is if you get a sponsor to take care of that curb extension. We have looked around for sponsors. Councilmember Rosenthal has looked for sponsors. We have not been able to get one. Roberta showed us that Board 4 has also asked DOT to waive the sponsor requirement to get a curb extension in a dangerous place. So we are likewise asking DOT to waive that requirement and put a curb extension at the southwest corner of 96th and West End. And that is basically what the resolution reads.
Okay.
Happy to take a question if there is any. You know, the sponsor really is only an issue if there's an extremely heavy snowfall. Fortunately, we haven't had too many of those in recent years, but I think safety should outweigh this crazy requirement, and I urge everybody to vote for this curb extension.
Thanks. So Andrew, I see a few hands. Shall we just call on them?
Sure.
Okay. So I see, well, first I'm going to go back to Madge. Madge, are you, whoops, I just lowered your hand. Madge, your hand was up. Was that the pre? No. Okay. Okay. Next is Jay Adolph. Got to unmute there, Jay.
Yes. I have a quick question, Andrew. Just can you briefly describe what this extension will look like?
There's a variety of treatments that DOT could use, from a physical curb extension to a designated area that is defined by bollards. There's any number of things they could do to make the turn basically a much safer turn. Pedestrians, yes, please, go
They
ahead.
had some bollards there for a while, I think, and they have lines forcing you to make a wider turn.
No, the ballards are in the middle. The ballards are in the middle of 96.
Well, anyway, just can you describe, so we don't have a specific configuration, is that?
It would be on the southwest corner along
Right.
96th Street, a certain distance west from West End Avenue. It's up to DOT to choose exactly which treatment they would use, but we want the curb extended so that it's a wider turn and pedestrians have more time and are more visible due to the curb
Would
extension.
that force the traffic coming off the West Side Highway to go from 2 lanes to 1 lane going east?
No, I think 2 lanes is maintained, actually.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Sure.
So next speaker I have is Roberta, followed by Michelle, then Ken.
So, thank you. So in 2017, the principal, Bob O'Brien, wrote a letter to the board. I did not copy the board on it because they could not find it because it's somewhere in the office and there's no one to retrieve it for us. But he asked that it's the very dangerous street for his children to get across the street. We've been working on this for 3 years, over 3 years, and it just, the traffic officers are very upset. Getting children across the street is like taking their lives in their hands. So I urge everybody to vote for this. And the board across the street has agreed to help remove snow in the winter when the school is closed, but they were not willing, the board was not willing to sign a contract. So we do have partners, but they're not official partners.
Thanks. Looks like the next hand is Michelle Parker, followed by Ken Coughlin, followed by Richard Ash.
Hi, so I assume the sponsor is the one who maintains the area, who picks up the garbage, who removes the snow, who calls DOT if some piece has to be, or a bollard has to be replaced.
Yeah, that's some of the things a sponsor would do. I don't know that they remove, I don't know why there would be garbage there. I mean, I guess there could be occasional litter, but it's basically about heavy snow removal. And if there was a planter in it, they would maintain the planter.
Andrew, the school will maintain it when the school's in session.
Yeah, that's a big plus here. But
they can't maintain it in the summer and weekends and holidays.
Right, when they're not in session, of course. And in the summer, it's likely there's less need for a sponsor too.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so next is Ken and Richard Ash, and then I think I see Rich Robbins' hand. And then let's move this along.
These are called maintenance partners, and they have to, in addition to take care of the space, they have to get insurance, which is not always easy to do, and which scares off a lot of potential partners. Curb extensions are proven to save lives because they shorten the crossing distances and they slow turning vehicles, but the city won't adopt a simple measure proven to prevent injuries and deaths unless a private group promises to sweep up and provide insurance in case someone injures themselves in this newly safe space. In other words, to make something safer, they need to get insurance. To keep it dangerous, they don't need insurance. What kind of sense does that make? Also, this is a matter not just of safety, but of equity. It's hard to find maintenance partners with insurance, and even harder in low income or very residential neighborhoods. So certain intersections go without if they're in low income neighborhoods or very residential areas. We should be doing this, actually, the city should be putting these in by default, and we shouldn't have to jump through these hoops to make our streets safer.
Thanks, Ken. Richard Ash, and then Rich Robbins.
Yeah, Ken really laid out the argument. My concern is that our letter be strong enough and indignant enough to get somebody's attention. It is outrageous that a matter that everyone agrees involves the safety of children should be held hostage to the willingness of some private citizen to take over the city's obligation. And so I would urge Andrew or whoever writes the letter to incorporate Ken's comments and really make an effort to embarrass the city. If necessary, go public on it.
No, that's a great
Just,
point.
it's an amazing, and it's short-sighted because if a kid ever does get injured, the city's going to get sued. You know, and it's going to cost a whole lot more than maintaining a little couple of square feet of cement.
Exactly. And
I'm
the
glad to work
city
with
should
you on
look
that
at
letter.
the city
I'll be
should look
happy
at
to take a look at it and add my
the
2
city
cents.
should look at intersections that have high pedestrian accidents and or fatalities and put these things in themselves without waiting for a community board, but they
If we
don't.
have statistics, Andrew, we should include those too. And also mention the principal.
Yes, indeed.
Thanks. There's a new principal at that school, but I'm sure they agree. Rich, and then I think Amy Hyman has her hand up.
Yeah, I just want to echo both Ken and Richard Ash in that this is essential. It shouldn't be something that we need a sponsor to make the streets safer. And to Richard's point, we need to be really strong. I would hope that we're going to vote close to unanimously, if not unanimously, for this. I think the resolution needs to be incredibly strongly worded, as does the letter. And I have a friendly amendment that I put in chat recommending that we say curb extensions are proven to save lives. We shouldn't need a community sponsor to install a critical safety measure at a very dangerous intersection directly in front of an elementary school. Howard and Andrew, I hope you accept that as friendly.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. Great. So Rich, make sure that you email that text to Andrew, Howard, and me, so we make sure it gets into the final version
Yes,
of the
we
resolution.
want a very strong resolution.
Yep, and then we'll work on the letter. Amy, you're up, and then I think that'll might be it.
I just wanted to thank everyone for putting this forward. We pick up in a normal school year anywhere between 25 and 50 kids from PS 75 and walk them up to 104th and Columbus. So that's a long walk for them. And that intersection is probably our greatest fear in getting them to us. So I want to thank you guys very much from us and from all of the families who go to PS 75 for hopefully making their walk a little bit safer.
Yes, and that intersection is doubly dangerous because people rush the light at 96th and West End to get to the highway. And we have asked for cameras at that intersection so far without success.
Well, I think we're ready to vote. I think just as a reminder to the board, we actually tried to get one of the developers who in ULURP to be the sponsoring partner for that intersection as a part of the conditions for their ULURP. The Department of City Planning didn't see it our way. So this is a better solution anyway. So I'm with you all. End of my monologue. And now let's call the question.
To Andrew's point about cameras, should we put cameras into the resolution?
I don't think we should. I think it might give them an out.
Okay.
Correct. And also cameras probably is something you want to take a global look at, not just do one-offs. So let's put that on a future agenda. All those in favor of this resolution as amended, please raise your hand now, virtually. If not, then physically. Some of us can't do the virtual. So, okay. So now we have one screen filled and I am going to do the count again. It's Mark is 1, Rich is 2, Peter is 3, Doug McGowan is 4. Ethel is 5, Louisa is 6, Robert is 7, Shelley is 8.
Paul Fisher's in there too.
I got Robert right. Doug Clyman is 9, Paul Fisher is 10.
Audrey.
Do I have any others?
He's 11.
Audrey Isaacs is 11. Thank you, Audrey. I'm just not seeing you tonight for some reason. Audrey's 11. Anybody else? Not seeing any others. Make one more pass here. So I have 29 and 11 is 40. Let's lower the hands. Okay. Anybody opposed? Don't see anybody opposed. So I'll go for abstentions. Anybody abstaining? I see 1, 2. Anybody else abstaining? That's it. Is 2, and then no one's for cause. So the vote I have is 40 to 0 to 2 to 0. And we'll, oh, I'm sorry, were there 3 abstentions? Looks like 3. Sorry, spoke too soon. 40-0 to 3-0 is what I have now. Okay, and the last one will be mine, and that is the bylaws amendment. The bylaws amendment is an amendment that would allow us to vote virtually. As you know, our bylaws say that we vote for our board. This is voting for board officers now, not for resolutions like we just did. And our board officer voting sheet per our bylaws has to be on paper and written in blue ink, and you have to actually physically sign it. And so the resolution that we announced last month per our bylaws to amend the bylaws is to add a provision that says that if we're taking an election of officers during a period in which we're permitted to vote and hold meetings digitally or virtually as we are right now, that we would that we could do it using a Google form or similar document. Each one of you has received that document, by the way, but I won't get ahead of myself. But the amendment that is necessary is to allow us to vote using this method, because the only other way is if we call out everybody's name one at a time. This is a more efficient and it more properly emulates the way in which we would take our vote if we were in person. I see Adam Herbst's hand raised. Adam, do you want to comment on this, or are you commenting for something else?
All right, can you hear me, Mark?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. I was just curious if you're going to change this in the bylaws, will the community still be able to, in advance, know who the people up for the positions would be on the board?
The answer is yes. The answer is yes, because the way it will work is that we don't change anything else in the bylaws. So we would still have one meeting at which officers are nominated, and then a separate meeting at which they are voted upon. So we nominated candidates for officers at our September meeting, and we're voting on them tonight, and that would continue to be the practice. And I see Adam Rosenberg, looks like you're trying to comment on this as well.
I just wanted to make sure that there was going to be clarity to the public, and that there's going to be a process by which people could get on there and see what's going on, who could speak, etc. That's my interest. Thank you.
Yep, and we will continue to announce the results of the election, in real time. And one of the virtues of this method is that we would be able to do it. Because this is are there any questions from my colleagues on the board? I think this is pretty self-explanatory, but I want to make allowances for anybody who has a question. And I am not seeing any hands. With your permission, I'm going to call the question, and because this is a bylaws amendment, I'm going to do this as a roll call vote. So please be prepared to unmute yourself and give me your vote on the amendment. And I'm going to start with Barbara Adler.
Yes.
Thank you. Jay Adolph.
Yes.
Thank you. Andrew Albert.
Yes.
Linda Alexander.
Yes.
Rosa Arenas.
Yes.
Richard Ash.
Yes.
Thank you. Stephen Brown.
Yes.
Thank you. Elizabeth Caputo.
Yes.
Josh Cohen.
Yes.
Christian Cordova is not with us. Ken Coughlin.
Yes.
Paige Kelly, I don't believe is with us. Paige? Right, okay. Louisa Craddock.
Yes.
Thank you. Catherine Delazero.
She will return.
Abstain.
Thank you. Mark Diller votes yes. Bev Donahue.
Yes.
Robert Espier.
Yes.
Lolita Farron. Lolita may be training for
She is.
voting. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Shelley Fine.
Yes.
Paul Fisher. is a yes in the chat. Julian Giordano,
Yes.
Amy Hyman,
Yes.
thank you. Madeline Innocent,
Yes.
Audrey Isaacs. Audrey, can you hear? You need to unmute. I'll come back to Audrey. Kay Carpin,
Yes.
Natasha Kazmi,
Yes.
Doug Clyman,
Yes.
Blanche Lawton. I'll come back to Blanche. Sarah Lind,
Yes.
thank you. Doug McGowan,
Yes.
Courtney Clark Matakis,
Yes.
Ira Michnek,
Yes.
Clary Newell,
Yes.
William Ortiz,
Yes.
Michelle Parker,
Yes.
thanks. Jeanette Roush,
Yes.
Seema Reddy,
Yes.
Andrew Ridgey,
Yes.
Rich Robbins,
Yes.
Madge Rosenberg,
Yes.
thanks. Melissa Rosenberg,
Yes.
Peter Sampton,
Yes.
thank you. Where am I? Here we go. Meg Schmidt,
Yes.
Susan Schwartz,
Yes.
Roberta Seamer,
Yes.
thank you. Ethel Sheffer,
Yes.
Polly Spain. Polly, are you with us? Polly may have had to leave for training as well.
Yes.
Oh, you're there. I'm sorry, spoke too soon.
Yes.
Irena Stennett. Second call, and Howard Yaris.
Yes.
Second call is for Audrey Isaacs. Audrey, can you hear me? I don't see Audrey on the list either. Okay. And the other one I missed was Blanche Lawton. Blanche, are you with us? I don't see either of those. And I'm just going to call one more time for Polly Spain. I think she's left the meeting. Okay.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Hey, there's Polly. All right.
She voted yes.
Got it. Okay. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It wasn't Polly I missed. It was Irena Stennett that I missed, right? I'm sorry. So Irena
Okay.
Stennett.
Yes, I voted before.
Yeah, I thought I had you. I'm sorry. Just took me a second. All right. So
Okay.
Irena Stennett, I don't see her name on the list either. So, I'm going to call that a day. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Mark, did you get Paul?
6, 7, 40, 41, 42. Yes, I got Paul. I got 42 yes, 1 abstention. So 42 to 0 to 1 to 0. Okay, which means that when we, it's 7:25, so that concludes the business session. Other than voting for our officers. A notice to the community as well as to my colleagues. I believe I mentioned this in a message earlier this month, but with the withdrawal of one candidate for vice chair, we now have as many candidates as there are positions. And the only thing that remains to be determined is which will be the first vice chair and which will be the second vice chair. That was explained in the email to you earlier today, enclosing your ballot. And we will turn to that ballot after we hear from the police department, assuming that the police department is with us. So Captain Zuber and or Deputy Inspector Yaguchi, are you with us? You may need to unmute yourself. I don't see that they're with us. If somebody else would double check me on that.
I don't see him. I don't see the mark in attendance or panels.
I
Right,
just
so
searched and did not see them.
All right, so let's do this. Let's start our elections committee presentation, and we'll get as far as we get it. When the police department joins us, we will immediately pivot to them, even if we're kind of in the middle of something. So that is the, and a personal word of great thanks to our election committee, who had to sort of invent this way of voting on the fly and then do it again. Christian Cordova, who couldn't be with us, was incredibly helpful with this. Rich Robbins jumped in at the last minute to bring it all the way across the finish line. Barbara Adler, Susan Schwartz, and who am I forgetting? Oh, Josh Cohen, who is the chair of the committee. Everybody did yeoman's work to pull this off. So many thanks for all that effort. So Josh, why don't you unmute and start us on the election process, and then we'll get as far as we get, and then we'll pivot to the police as soon as they can join us.
Okay, so the first thing is that we just wanted to have each candidate introduce themselves and just give a quick short bio, because there are some new members of the board who were not here and maybe not know everybody so well. So Mark Diller, who is running for chair, if you could give everybody just a quick bio.
Sure. I am, let's see, I've been on Community Board 7 since 2008. I was chair from 2011 to 13, and I've been chair for this past year. The term will end in November. I am a lawyer by trade and have been working in that capacity since 1985. I am prior in my volunteer life prior to Community Board 7 was largely being a recidivist PTA president and school leadership team member, where I tried to lobby for funding for education and children issues. And one of the things that one learns in trying to advocate for children is that schools need support, and one of those supports, of course, is the budget, but another support is a stable home. So you find yourself advocating for affordable housing and for food security as well. And so that is a brief bio of me and my volunteer life.
Thank you. And now we'll go to Andrew for vice chair. We'll go to Andrew Ridgey first.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Ridgey, proud Upper West Sider. Have lived on and off in the Upper West Side for many, many years. Have been back on the board now, I guess, for, I forget now, 3 or 4 years. Just have finished my first term as first vice chair. In my personal life, I run a not-for-profit trade association that represents the city's restaurant and nightlife industry. So as you all know, it's been quite a devastating time for our small businesses. So I'm passionately fighting for the industry around the clock and trying to share that experience and insights with the board, and always an open ear. Tends to be more of a virtual ear these days for anyone on the board that really has any other issues. Live in the district with my wife and 5-year-old daughter, who is now I guess we're all doing virtual blended learning and trying to figure out how that works. But we love the neighborhood, love the community board, love being in the role of vice chair, and look forward to hopefully continuing to serve the community. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next would be Doug Clyman.
Hi, everyone. I am very honored and privileged to serve on this board and on behalf of this community, which I've lived in since, well, let's just say 55 years. Born and raised New Yorker and Upper West Sider. I went to public school here, PA 87, IS 44, and even kindergarten before that. My professional work, I work as a commercial real estate broker specializing in small businesses. That's restaurants and stores. I work in retail real estate, which is, you can imagine, has been very challenging. And I do my very best to put in lots of small businesses and fill those vacant stores and do whatever I can to help in that regard, which has been a challenge, but I'm up to it. Also, I've been president of a tenant association, which has also happened to be a Mitchell-Lama building. And was a member of the Mitchell-Lama Task Force, the former Manhattan Borough President Virginia Fields, to help with transitioning buildings out of Mitchell-Lama, because the building I lived in, unfortunately, was transitioned out. So we tried to make a very good deal for everybody, and I'm proud to say most people stayed in their apartments, which was the goal. I'm just very honored and privileged. I'm finishing my first term as second vice chair, and I'm committed to listening to the entire neighborhood and every one of my fellow board members, and just to keep doing what's best for our beloved neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Now we're going to go for secretary, and we'll start with Beverly Donahue.
Yes, I've lived on the Upper West Side for 46 years with my husband. We raised our two sons here. They're in their 40s now, so no longer with us in the same apartment, at least. This is my first year on the board. I was appointed by Helen to serve an unexpired term this past spring. I'm recently retired. I spent my career mostly in government and then in nonprofits towards the latter part of it. I was at New York City OMB for 10 years. I was the CFO of the Department of Education for 7 years, and then for 15 years, a vice president of a nonprofit called New Vision for Public Schools that focused on school reform, and I recently left that post. I care a great deal about this neighborhood and have focused in my time here on education and budget issues. And I look forward to continuing to do so.
Thank you. And now Julian Giordano, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Julian Giordano, and I'm really looking forward to serving with Bev as a co-secretary next year. I've been on the board for the past 1.5 years now. I serve on the YEL, transportation committees, and the Bylaws and Communication Task Force. I am 17 years old. I am the only high school student on the board. I grew up attending pre-K, elementary, and middle schools in the district, and I currently go to Stuyvesant High School, where I'm currently in remote learning. Government and politics, and especially local government, has really been a passion of mine. For a long time, I helped found the West 64th through 67th Streets Block Association, and I've been interning with a few local elected officials. Also, being a student is really important to me, and I really care about student voice, especially student involvement in government. And so I'm the president of my school student government, and I represent students across the city on the Chancellor's Student Advisory Council for the Department of Education. Yeah, I'm really grateful for this opportunity to serve on Committee Board 7, for the opportunity to be secretary. And I think this past year, especially with the transition to remote communication, has been really important. And I'm really proud of the work that we've done as a board, as a transportation committee, and as co-secretaries to advertise our meetings on Link NYCs, on social media. And I'm looking forward to continuing that work this year. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Now, if there's anybody who has any questions or any comments for any of the people that are running for any of these offices, now is your time to speak.
Do we need to raise our hand, Josh? Like
yes, and your hand is raised, Elizabeth. So
my
yes.
hand is raised. Thanks. I just want to thank all of the 5 folks who are stepping up to be in leadership. We're really looking forward to having you again. My question, or many of you again, and some of you for the first time, my question is really just more about looking at issues related to gender and people of color, and making sure that our board reflects what's happening, not just in the country, but in our neighborhood. And just by looking at the 5 members of the board, it's a great group. I'd like to know if any of you want to add sort of some specific proposals and ideas that you might have about how you're going to make sure that those issues are prioritized on our board going forward.
Mark?
Thank you. So I'll jump in on that. We've been doing some great work on expanding the reach of our board. the opportunity to be of service in a variety of capacities, in a variety of neighborhoods. I think the housing committee meeting this month will be yet another expansion of that. And so, so that's one way in which I personally will be looking forward to that. In a very different way, a number of us have been putting our heads together, both within our board and then me with other chairs of other community boards, to try to pull together an inward-facing bit of work on issues of race, equity, and accountability and transparency. And we're working with the Borough President's office to try to come up with something that would be tailored to what our board would want to see and use, but still be something that would be useful in the ways in which we move ourselves forward. So I look forward to that. Of course, requires money that we don't have, so we go to our managing partner, as you will, the Borough President's office, who is interested in trying to work with the boards to come up with something that would be useful in that regard. There are a couple of other things we could talk about in terms of the ways in which our budget resolutions this past year especially reflected the way in which we want to be of service to a broad swath of our community, having to do with those who are the least able to enjoy the benefits what a lot of us do enjoy in terms of affluence in this community. And I'm going to stop myself there because I'm going to encourage everyone to be brief, so I need to practice that. But those are just some of the ideas that I think might be responsive to your question, and thank you for asking, Elizabeth.
Next is Catherine Delazero. Catherine, there you go.
Thank you. I also want to thank everyone in executive leadership, and building off Elizabeth's question, Mark, I'm wondering if you can be a little bit more explicit, because we spoke about anti-racism awareness training, and I understand that there's not funding, and as you just said, there's not funding for us to do that work as a board apart from the Borough President's office. And given that this feels urgent, it's always urgent. What are your plans in terms of what to do, what we can do that's concrete to support diversity and inclusion and keep those conversations about anti-racism going? We spoke about, and Madeline just suggested on the chat that we could do it ourselves, but could you be a little bit more explicit about what your plans are? We did speak about an inclusion and diversity task force at some point, but if you could be a little bit more explicit, that would be great.
Thanks. So there were a number of folks who were interested in an inclusion and diversity task force, and my intention is to convene that and to try to come up with some topics that I was actually just speaking with the Borough President's office today about this, to try to make that a little more concrete. There isn't funding for any one board to do one thing, but the idea would be to try to create something that would be useful for multiple boards, even if they didn't all take it at the same time. There are a lot of details to work out, and that's what I want to come to that diversity and inclusionary task force to do, is to set some parameters that would be useful in terms of doing that kind of work, and also to come up with something that's reasonable in terms of, you know, racism and diversity training often can be a multi-day, multi-hour workshop that involves work before the session, work during the session, and then follow-up work thereafter. And so we need to be careful about what we're trying to build. And that's one of the things that I want to come to a group of our colleagues to work on, to make sure that no one of us is calling the shots on this, and that we get a good cross-section of what people will actually participate in and will actually meet the goals that we have for it. So that's a little more detail about what I'm trying to do.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I'd like to just, Richard put a lot of work into setting this all up, and so he probably would be best to explain to everybody or take it from here. Again, Richard, awesome job setting everything up. So please go ahead.
Yeah, and credit to Jerry, who unfortunately couldn't make it. He set up the original version of this. But basically, it's a Google form we needed a secure way of knowing that people are voting for themselves. So everyone should have gotten the link. Everyone should have gotten an email from Penny that has 3 things in it. Number 1, it has the link to the vote. Actually, it just has 2 things. It has the link to the vote, and it has a unique code that you put in as the last question.
Sorry to interrupt, Richard, but the police are ready to talk. I think we should get them in so we can, their time is, and then get back to this after.
Okay, good. So let's do that.
right.
So Rich, just hold that thought. And we're going to call on, I think it's Deputy Inspector Yaguchi who's with us. Is Captain Zuber with us as well?
I am, Mark. I'm here.
Terrific. So maybe we go in number order, call on the 2-0 and then the 2-4 for an update, and then we'll have some Q&A. And I'm sorry, Rich, if you could put into the chat the sign-up sheet for anybody who wants to ask a question or make a comment. We're going to be limiting those to 1 to 2 minutes, please, so we can get as many of them in as possible. And without further ado, Captain Zuber, thank you for joining us.
Sorry, forgot to unmute for a second. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for including us in this again. So in the 20th precinct, we're noticing we're following trend lines when it comes to crime, where we're seeing slightly more property crime happening this time, right now than we were a couple of months ago, but we're actually below a few numbers where we were this time last year. So the trends seem to be following in exactly the same what we would expect. And we're doing our best to address that as it comes up. I'm very happy to say that what we are not seeing here in the 20th precinct is what we are seeing in other parts of the city, is that's the violent crime, especially the violent street crime. Even when you look at the categories such as robbery, what is classified as a robbery is the theft of property with the use of force. By and large, what happens here in the 20th precinct is that those robberies that we take are shoplifting, there where a little bit of force or a threat of force is used, not the violent street type robbery that we're seeing in other parts of the city. I apologize, I really don't have many prepared remarks, and I understand that there are quite a few people who have questions. Would you like to just get to those, Mark? Or?
Sure, but let's call on Inspector Yaguchi first.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Again, thank you also for the invite. Just from the 2-4 precinct point of view, I think we've talked about this before in other meetings, but this summer we've taken an inordinate amount of shootings. We have 9 shootings for the year. That's up from 1 last year. 8 of the 9 shootings occurred in the summer beginning on June 19th. We've had a number of shots fired incidents as well in the last month or so. Certainly we're not seeing the violence that we did in July, but we're still seeing some spots of it here and there. In terms of the property crime, we are up in burglaries. I think I've talked about in the West Side Rag, and burglaries are up, both residential and commercial burgs. The commercial burglaries are mainly happening on the overnight hours, people breaking into storefronts. Residential burgs mostly consist of package thefts, where basically have individuals gaining unauthorized access into a lobby, not somebody's apartment, but getting into a lobby and taking packages. We've had a large number of those thefts occurring. And so that's basically the point of view from the 2-4. Good thing is we are down in robberies significantly, which is forcible taking a property out on the streets, which is one good news that we have for the year. But like Captain Zuber said, I know there's a lot of questions out there, so I'll leave more time for that.
Very good. So I'm just going to pivot right to the questions. We're going to ask folks we're going to call on folks first with priority who live in the 2-0 or the 2-4 precinct, and then as time allows, we'll keep going after that. So, and I'm going to go more or less in the order in which I've received them here. So the first person, and we do ask you to keep it to 1 to 2 minutes, is Maria Danzillo or Denzillo, forgive my pronunciation, followed by Erica Gerson. Do we need to do something to unmute you? If Rich and Doug can help me with that, that would be great.
Doug, do you want to be on point for unmuting? If we're both doing it, we'll cancel each other out.
Either way is fine.
Doug, why don't you do it?
Sure, I'll do it. And then timing, you'll do timing.
Yep.
Okay. Were we unmuting now?
I'm sorry, I read it off, but it's first person is Maria Danzillo, followed by Erica Gerson, followed by Jody Bassi Markov, is how I pronounce it.
I do not see a Maria in the attendees.
I just
Hello.
There you go.
Hello. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, please go.
Oh, sorry. Last time I spoke, I was on my laptop and it didn't work, so I switched to my phone. Sorry about the delay. So this is my third or fourth time speaking at the meeting. Thank you very much, our NYPD and members of the committee. I'm a member of the West Siders for Safer Streets group, 15,000 plus members. I'm a 40-year resident of the Upper West Side. I just want to, again, ask the community board to take our issues seriously. I know that when the announcement was made that people from Lucerne would be moving downtown, Community Board 1 stepped up and did quite a lot to, try to stop any movement into their neighborhood, and based on, the significant, what they said in their statements is that it was based on the, significant deterioration of the Upper West Side and increase in crime and other issues that were, well documented over many months. But we have felt in our community that the board is not hearing us and not taking us seriously. And the whole issue has become so, incredibly politicized. Just this past Saturday, Sunday, there was a ceremony, or that's what you want to call it, where the building was wrapped up in ribbons with all kinds of people speaking and the press and everything else. It's turned into this huge circus. And at the same time, there were two major crime incidents in the neighborhood. One, which was witnessed by someone from our group, the assault of a person on the street on Columbus Avenue and 70th Street. So, the irony of having this, ribbon cutting ceremony at the same time that these crimes are occurring, and having our community board just not hear us. Or, I appreciate you're giving us some time today, but where is the board in standing up for what's going on in the neighborhood? I understand that, some crimes.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut you off because that's well past your 2 minutes.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Not at all.
Okay.
I will, perhaps later we'll have a chance to answer some of those things. Right now, what I'm really hoping we can do is make good use of the time of the commanding officers of the two precincts. So if folks are raising their hands, I would like them to be asking questions of the NYPD, and we'll certainly make time to discuss community board matters after that, but let's use the time
Sure.
with the commanding officers as best we can. So the next
Fair
person
enough.
is Erica Gerson. If Erica could be unmuted, followed by Jody Bassi Markov, followed by Megan Martin.
Hi, I want to be respectful, but you asked us for the forms, not making it clear that this was for the NYPD portion. So I'd very much like to be heard tonight, but I want to be respectful of your parameters. What would
Okay,
you like?
thanks. So you want to talk about other things than that? That's great. We'll keep you on the list. How's that?
You promise to call on me again?
You're still on the list. I'm not deleting you. Jody Bassoff Markov for the NYPD.
Mark, there's a question in the
Hi,
chat.
hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, hi. So thank you for taking me, and thank you to the NYPD. I have lived on the Upper West Side for 25 years, and I'd like to say I've never, up until now, felt so unsafe. So I just don't, I think the police are doing a great job with what they have, but I don't see them out there. I don't see anyone. I hardly see police, and I see homeless on every corner, encampments of people. I've been approached multiple times aggressively for panhandling. So I can't go to Fairway and Cinderella's anymore the way I used to go there. I mean, every time I walk out, there's someone panhandling, approaching me. The platform across the street from the train station on 72nd and Broadway is littered. It's for one, it's just filthy, and for two, there's people passed out everywhere. It's just, I'm really, in 25 years, have never seen the Upper West Side to this condition with the homeless and the crime going up.
Thank you for your comments.
I have one more. I mean, if, you know, I actually on 76th and Broadway at about 8:30 at night, I saw a homeless person urinating in the doorway right there next to the Lululemon shop. I mean, I don't think that is the neighborhood that we know for the last 25 years.
Thank you. So to the commanding officers, do you have a response about what folks should do when they see things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. And since I got here in February, we've been hearing this same refrain over and over again. It's about the rising in homeless on the streets. It's about the rising of all of the categories that come with that. Is a root cause, and then there's all of the other quality of life issues that go along with it. And we've been working very hard to address those quality of life issues within the parameters that we can actually work on. And one of those things that we've been putting out to as many people as we can, talking to our neighborhood councils, talking to our neighborhood block associations on meetings such as this, is please, when you see a crime, when you see this violation happening, please call 911. Please let us know right away. When you do that, you enable us first to get the best possible response at the time when it's actually happening. And very importantly, it allows us to document these crimes and these violations so that when we go back and we do our analysis that is constantly evolving, we are putting our officers in the right place at the right time where they can do the most good, when they can do the most good. And I have to say that since we really started this outreach after the first reopening after the pandemic, when people were going back onto the streets and after the little bit of unrest that happened in June and July, we've seen a drastic improvement, and the people are contacting us, and in all of these forums are talking about the improvements that they're seeing, that we are working in the right direction. That has a lot to do with the officers on the street, but it has just as much to do with the community, those who are working with us, those who are letting us know, the eyes and ears out there. You know your streets, you know your blocks, you know your neighborhood, you know what doesn't belong. And unfortunately, we cannot be everywhere at once. And it's very obvious when we are there, since we are all in uniform now, and we are all in marked police cars for the most part now. So it's very obvious when a police officer turns onto the block. So if somebody is there with nefarious reasons, if somebody is there to cause some kind of trouble, it's obvious to them when a police officer comes onto the block, so that they're just going to wait. They're going to wait until there is no police in sight. So we really need everyone call 911 immediately, let us know, and be willing to communicate with us while we're there. Any follow-up information, such as what the person looks like, what he's wearing, what she's wearing, where they've gone since you called 911, so that we can follow up and get the best possible response.
Thank you. I want to give Deputy Inspector Yaguchi a chance to comment if you want to, otherwise we can move on.
Yeah, our 311, 911 is something that I look at. I know Neil looks at it every day when we wake up as part of our email. So we definitely look at that. Like he said, speak up. A recent community council meeting, one of our store owners complained about increased homelessness around 9-3 and B-Way. So the foot posts that we've deployed, we had them earlier in September up on like 9-5, 9-6 and B-Way, and we actually brought them south to 9-3 and B-Way. So my message to all of you is that these kind of forums, community council meetings, 301 calls, 911 calls, they do help us move our personnel to give you a little bit more presence to the extent that we can while you're out and about.
Thank you. I'm going to interrupt for just a second, and this won't count against anybody's time, but I'm noticing in the chat that there is an increasing amount of what I would consider to be disrespectful and troublesome ways of expressing ourselves. We have the advantage of our two commanding officers with us, and I want all of our meetings to be as respectful in virtual time as they would be in person. And so I'm going to ask folks, I'm going to ask people to please use decorum and respect in all aspects with each other, with the members of the board, and certainly with respect to our police officers who are with us at now 8 o'clock at night to make sure that we get information directly from them. And so I'm seeing Mr. Nimby, I'm calling you out right now that if that doesn't stop, then I'm going to ask folks to remove you from our room. This is just not how we can conduct business. This is not how we conduct a community event. We need to be speaking in a way that builds community. And I know that that's very difficult in these circumstances, but that's exactly where I'm coming from, and I will not hesitate. With that, I'm going to turn, I see that there are some hands from my board colleagues. I ask you to hold on because I promised we would get to the community first. And so I am going to go to the community first. And I think Megan Martin was next, is that correct? Followed by, looks like Peter Arnson, followed by Taylor Banning. So if you could unmute Megan Martin, and we're going to keep going on that vein.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. So on Sunday, actually, I was the eyewitness of that attack on Columbus, and around 2 p.m., a group of young men attempted to rob the phone store on Columbus Avenue between 70 and 71st Street, and they actually proceeded to viciously beat one of the workers, and then they sped away in a waiting getaway vehicle. This was in front of pedestrians, children, senior citizens, people just trying to eat outside Muffins Cafe. I mean, I've lived on the Upper West Side for 7 years. I have never seen anything like this on a weekend, daytime event. And just this past weekend, I can count for 4 pretty violent incidents. 3 teachers were assaulted on 89th Street. We all have heard about Rick Moranis assaulted at 7:30 in the morning. On 70th and Central Park West, multiple car break-ins along Riverside Drive, a robbery at gunpoint at CBS on 86 and Broadway. A woman had her chain stolen, basically just grabbed off her neck. So, I mean, I respectfully, Captain Zuber, I do hear what you're saying if you're looking at just some raw data, but I look at CompStats too every week, and these incidents, this is not normal. This is our new normal in the Upper West Side. So we need to find solutions. And is this going to be more patrols, more plainclothes officers, more security cameras? I mean, the data is pretty clear. The NYPD is our greatest resource to make our streets safe. This is going to help our community recover from the devastating financial and public health crisis that we've all just faced. And I guess one of the questions that I think is a lot on our mind is, are your officers being diverted because of these sort of weekend events that now we're seeing more incidents happen in the lower 70s? So I have a few questions in there, and I would really appreciate if you guys can answer. We're just looking for solutions here because I think people feel very unsafe. They feel very unsafe walking into stores. They feel very unsafe walking down the street. And I can tell you, I'm very shook up. I usually have my 2 young children with me, and I'm very happy that they weren't there.
Okay. Starting with the most high profile of those, the Rick Moranis assault. That's something that was completely out of the blue and does not have any connection to anything that we've seen otherwise happening here in this precinct or the other precincts for that matter. It seems to be a completely random attack. There just is no explanation for it. The investigation is ongoing. We've had several Crime Stopper tips. We're following up on each of them. As upsetting as that is for everybody, obviously it's most upsetting for Mr. Moranis. And he was adamant that he did not want his name out. It's an unfortunate leak with the press in front of his building. We're still in communication with him. And as I said, the investigation is ongoing. The attack, what you said was the attempted robbery of the cell phone store. I'm aware of that also. It was actually not an attempted robbery though, not to split hairs, but they didn't go in to steal anything. They didn't attempt to steal anything. They went in to have a cell phone repaired. They got into an argument with the owner, and they that argument turned into a violent fight. So we did take a report for him. He was assaulted, and that investigation is also ongoing. In terms of the other crimes, the other property crimes, whether it's theft from stores or the theft on the street, it's upsetting. There's no question about that. And it's most upsetting to the people who witness it. And I think, honestly, when you look at the numbers, and not to minimize any victim, because whenever something happens to a person, that's the most important thing right now to that person, to that family, to their friends, and to their neighbors. I think that part of what we're seeing is there's a hyper awareness right now in the neighborhood on the Upper West Side because of the recent stories, because of what's happened this summer, and everybody's paying a lot more attention to it. When we have meetings and we have people here into the precinct and we speak to them, they always come out and they say the same thing, that it's like they've finally opened their eyes and they see what's happening around them. The numbers are not drastically different, higher or lower than they were this time last year. The types of crime are not drastically different, higher or lower than they were this time last year or the year before that. It's just that I think there's a lot more awareness of what is happening. What that's doing for us is it's allowing us, like I said, to drill down on it and to put the officers where they can be used the best, when they can be used the best. Some of the issues that we're having now, it's no secret, we're having budget cuts. So in the past, where we may have been able to use some overtime to put some extra officers on the street, that's not really an option right now. On top of that, where we used to use overtime to put officers into other parts of the city, we're having some issues with that, where we're taking people from working their normal tour, officers working their normal tour, and instead of them working here in the neighborhoods where they're normally assigned, they're going towards the mobile field forces or the responses for the protests that are happening in parts of the city. We have a list, and it's called minimum manning. It's the minimum personnel that have to be working at any given time in a precinct, and we never, ever go below that minimum manning. So there's always sufficient numbers of police officers working in the sectors, answering the 911 calls. So when I talk about using these extra officers to move them outside of the precinct, we're talking about officers whose primary job at that time is not to answer 911. It could be the domestic violence officers, it could be the highway safety officers, and we're backfilling those spots with other officers. I'm sorry, Megan, I know you did have a few more questions in there. Would you repeat anything else you wanted me to get into, or?
Well, I just think that, whether or not it's, you're saying it's perception or it's reality, I think that the idea that perception is reality, absolutely, and that people are for sure, the robberies and the break-ins of, vehicles are reality. And for people who have lived in this neighborhood for many, many years, including myself and my family, we are noticing an incredible uptick of these incidents. And so, what has changed, whether or not it's, regarding your staffing, how the plainclothes officers are in the neighborhood. I did actually go back to the phone store on Monday, and the workers did tell me that they were trying to rob the store. And I did, so that whatever the circumstance were, that they were canvassing the neighborhood looking to for opportunity. So I think that that's sort of an important point to make. But
absolutely. Now that's something that they did not say that to the officers on the scene. They have not said that to the detectives since then. I don't know if you spoke to the same employees who were there at the time, or maybe they got the story secondhand from the victim that we actually took the report for. But all we can do is we investigate the crimes as they're reported to us. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to say that.
No, I just think that whatever it is that we as a community can do, whether or not it's more security cameras, it's it's helping to with more security guards, it's plainclothes officers. What is it that our community can do? Because I know in speaking to our neighbors and my friends and the stores, I mean, people do not feel safe, and that is what is going to help bring back our community in terms of how devastated COVID, the devastation that COVID happened. So this is just such an important aspect of that. We're never going to to have this occur.
I have to say that we enjoy a great partnership with all the local businesses and the buildings, whether it's privately owned buildings or the apartment buildings that have security cameras out front. I can't think of any time where we were turned away in doing our investigation where they wouldn't allow us access to their cameras. That's absolutely vital for us. In this day and age, as soon as a crime is reported, the first thing we go out and do, one of the first things anyway, is go out and we do a video canvas. We have points of contact in all the local businesses, in all of the apartment buildings. And we know which cameras are pointing in what direction. That allows us to follow perpetrators and victims both during the crime and then before and after. It allows us to do things like get the wanted posters out in almost real time, so that the police officers on the street who are out canvassing within minutes of this crime happening, we're able to get to them pictures from security camera, from private security cameras. It's not NYPD or New York City security cameras. It is absolutely a huge help. In terms of property crimes that are happening at night, Inspector Yaguchi had mentioned this major uptick that we're seeing in package, or most of the burglaries that are happening are packages that are left unattended in lobbies or in hallways of apartment buildings. And what can the community do? Get the information out there through your block associations, through your neighbors associations, and let people know, please do not leave Amazon packages outside. Do not leave them in lobbies where they're visible. If they're going to be left even up on the second or third floor where they're not visible from the street, try to get them out of the hallways so that when people come into the buildings, they don't see them there. And most importantly, keep your buildings secure. Keep the door locked. If there's a doorman, please still have the door locked, because the doorman can be distracted. He has to go on his breaks sometimes. And if there isn't a doorman in the building, if somebody comes and buzzes to get into the building, if they hit the buzzers, a lot of times they'll hit 2 or 3 buzzers until somebody just, instead of coming to the door, just lets them in. That's how the thefts happen. So you have to let your neighbors know that this is a real problem that is going on. And safety and security is really everybody's responsibility.
Thank you. I'm going to move us on, but while I look for the next name, if the two commanding officers could expand on that answer just briefly to say what the community board can be doing. I know we have a budget oversight issue or responsibility, and I would be interested in your ideas on that. And if there's anything else that the community board can do to support efforts for safety, that would be probably very helpful for all of us to hear. So please go ahead. And while I'm doing that, I think the next person is the next person Peter Arnson. Is that correct? Followed by Taylor Banning. But the Captain Zuber and Inspector Yaguchi, go ahead first.
Thank you. This is Peter Arnson with the Columbus Amsterdam bid north of 96th Street. And I want to thank both of the COs for coming out. Hi, Officer, Deputy Inspector Yaguchi. So I've got a couple of thoughts. First one is that I hope that that you could talk a little bit about the guns and gangs, and I'm hoping that that's being reduced. We aren't seeing what we were a couple of months ago, so I have hopes for that. But in addition, I wanted to just bring up the with fewer people out on the street, the people with mental health issues are more of a presence, and we're getting reports about them. We're trying to communicate that. In many cases, they disappear before, or if they see the police coming, they take off. So that is an issue that I'm not quite sure how to deal with. And the last one is just that really appreciate having the open streets for restaurants. The residents and the restaurants have been appreciating that considerably, having the space for both walking and for seating. And that actually has changed some of the dynamics with the people that have mental health issues. And they are not as likely to act out in some cases. Thanks.
If there's any comment or response, go ahead. Otherwise, I'll call on the next person. So that's Taylor Banning.
Good evening. This is Taylor Banning. I'm a resident of a different community board, actually. Thank you for the chance to speak. I just wanted to add that, you know, homelessness is not a crime, and I hope we can all apply the same accountability to show towards ourselves, to show respect when speaking about homeless individuals. And to follow on that, I was wondering if the officers on the call would be willing to share what tools they use and what tools they recommend their officers use to support and provide services to street homeless that they come across. Thank you. And, also 311. In my community board, we talk about 311 a lot. It's not perfect, but it's a way to help at least provide services to a homeless person. Can you?
Okay, I'm gonna leave that question there. We did try to prioritize folks who live in our district in the 2.0 and the 2.4 first. That question has been asked, so let's answer that, and then we're gonna move on. So I believe the question was what tools are being used when approaching street homeless.
That's for us, I guess. Just
Yes,
real
please.
quick, our homeless outreach unit has been disbanded. So obviously we used to have a dedicated unit for that. Just as an example, we had one homeless individual, I think that most people in the community know about, was at 96th Street and Broadway, had all his stuffs all over the place right at the entrance of the subway. I encourage my cops to begin a conversation with him, not to remove him necessarily, but just to get to know him, see what his goal was camping out there. They got to know him. They started talking to him. They said that he was a very nice individual. About a week later, somebody came up. They were actually doing a patrol right about 2 blocks away just because of the homeless complaints that we've been getting. An individual came up to them and said there was a person that was screaming, I want to kill people, or I'm going to kill you. Cops ran over there and they heard it themselves. Obviously something was disturbing him. And they sent him away. They called an ambulance for him and he went to the hospital to get some psychiatric help. He was back out the next day, and then the officers were able to speak to him again. And I guess because of the encounters that they had previously, that the individual was a little bit more trusting of the cops, and the next day he was gone. I don't know where he went, but please do know that we understand that homelessness is not a crime, and that we are trying to deal with it in different ways. By trying to get them help, or trying to talk to them, or trying to find out what is going on in their lives. You should also know that we also did reach out to Goddard Riverside. They sent somebody out there to try to offer services. Of course, he refused. So we are trying different ways of dealing with this.
Thank you. I believe the next person is, I only have the first name, Christy, followed by Sandra Smith, followed by Nicole Metzger, excuse me.
Christy Diamond, correct?
I just have Christy on the sheet, but that might be right.
Hi, how are you? I just had a quick question. I just wanted to know, by what percentage are 311 quality of life complaints up through the end of September? And can you speak a little bit about the broad categories of 311 complaints received by each of the 20th and 24th precincts, please?
Sorry, I was having an issue with my audio in the beginning. I heard the second part of the question about the broad categories of 311 complaints.
Yes.
Christy? Okay,
Yes.
so just in case anybody's unaware, 311 it was originally designed for non-emergency calls. So if you see a crime, or if you're the victim of a crime in progress, or if you have an emergency requiring an ambulance or the fire department, you call 911. 311 would be more for other services throughout the city, and it could be not just with the police department or with the fire department. It could be with sanitation, with parks department, with Department of Homeless Services, which seems to be our biggest increase here on the Upper West Side. And so I'm sorry, Christy, just one more time. What did you want to answer?
I just wanted to know, like, the percentage that it was up from through the end of September for quality of life complaints.
I'm sorry, I don't have it exactly because the individual categories were up and the homelessness was the most drastic increase. Whereas
what was that increase exactly?
I don't have, Christy, I'm sorry, I don't have the exact number. Do you want to email me either that, or I can?
Sure,
no
problem.
Yeah, I'll forward it. Mark, I can forward it to you and you can share it with the rest of the community board. I'm sorry, I don't have it on me.
No problem, thank you.
That's great.
I also don't have I don't have specific numbers as to what the increases are compared to last year. The complaints that we mostly get into for are mostly noise complaints, followed by parking issues and homelessness issues.
I would like to say really quickly that if you were to ask any precinct, any neighborhood around the city what the #1 complaint is, almost universally it's noise complaints. For the first time here in the 20th precinct, we're noticing that that is not the top complaint, that it is actually the homelessness now.
Okay, I'm just going to have a quick note that it's 8:15. We invited the captains to be the captain and the inspector to be with us for half an hour. It looks like they are game to stay a little longer, if that would be great. And I have a few more. We're not going to get to everybody in this part of the session, and we did invite our elected officials to speak to us starting around 8:30, 8:45. I noticed that Assembly Member Dick Godfrey is waiting patiently to speak. I ask his patience a little longer, but we're grateful that you're with us, and I don't know if there are others as well. So let's keep going with Sandra Smith is next, and Nicole Metzger for sure.
Hi there, my name is Sandra Smith. Thank you for having me. Do you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, hi. So actually, I had a different question. It was about traffic, but since we're on this topic, can you, Captain Zuber, really explain to all of us bail reform? I think we're very confused with what the police officers are really allowed to do as far as if someone's committing a certain crime, like is it a violent crime, a non-violent crime, and then they're back on the street, and then how many times. Like, it seems like the same person can perpetuate the same crime over and over again. But that's the way, I don't know if that's what you're seeing, but maybe you can explain it to us.
That is absolutely what we're seeing. I wish I could explain it. Sometimes I have a hard time, we all have a hard time comprehending it. Bail reform is not something specifically to New York City, it's to New York State. And it happened a little over a year ago, I think was when the first push started, about 15, 16 months ago. And without getting into the politics of why or why not, it felt that giving cash bail was unfair. So effectively what it did was it stops people from being held in jail after they'd committed a serious crime until they had their court date. So effectively, instead of being in jail off the streets, they're back out. And yes, again, without getting into the politics of it, we have seen a drastic increase in the number of recidivists who are out committing the same types of crime time and time again.
So I guess the question, oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, we're gonna have to limit it to one question.
Okay, sorry, go ahead. Okay.
I'm trying to get as many people in as I can.
I get it, thank you.
So the next person is Nicole Metzger. And then I see that Erica Gerson wants to rethink her having given back her time. So, and that may be all we get to in this round, but we will have public session after this. If the commanding officers can stay with us a little longer, that'll be great. But if not, we'll continue to hear public testimony. So let's go to Nicole Metzger, followed by Erica Gerson, and then see what time it is.
Hi, Mark. Thanks so much. And thank you to the NYPD. I'd like to understand if Helen Rosenthal has reached out to either of you directly to understand your resourcing needs, especially after the influx of 700 homeless into the community within 10 blocks, and whether or not you've had any direct discussions with her.
I do speak with Councilmember Helen Rosenthal, usually a couple times a week, either through text messages or emails or phone calls. To talk to her about our staffing issues would really, that's just not the way that our staffing issues are decided. That's through our department. Our department are the ones who assign officers, not the city council. I'm sorry, Nicole, does that answer it, or do you?
Well, do you need additional resources? Because from what everybody's saying in our group, right, 15,000 people don't feel safe on the streets and we don't have enough officer presence. I was sexually harassed in Riverside Park twice in a week, and the guys got really close to me while I was with my boyfriend and before dark, twice. And they got really, really close and continued to engage with us for a while. I shouldn't have to feel that worried walking my dog at 6:00 p.m. in the Upper West Side. We
Yeah.
need more patrolling in Riverside at dusk.
You're absolutely right. So,
And so how do we address the resource needs? Because I don't want to hear budget constraints anymore. I want to hear action and what can we do outside of budget constraints to restore public safety?
I don't know, but I believe that it is 100% budget constraints. When you cut the budget of a department and you tell them that because of that, they're not allowed to hire any more people, and you still have retirements, then just the rules are your numbers are going to go down.
Well, if she controls the budget or can influence the budget, and we can put in our district needs statement that we need more police, how do we get this to happen? How do we get the October class of recruits that was canceled back reinstated? So in 6 months, we have actual officers on our streets walking the beat, keeping us safe.
I think
how do we do that?
That is exactly what needs to be done if that's what you're pushing for. And it's not just with this one council member, but it's with the entire city council. It's with all the elected officials.
That's 100% what we are asking for. So Mark, I don't know how you can raise that because I don't see Helen on the call tonight, but it's really, really important that we get additional funding for the NYPD.
So I will respond out of turn to say that the community board also submits recommendations on budget priorities, and I think everybody on our board just heard you. And that will be a topic of a discussion later on this month. So thank you for that. And I'm going to pivot to Erica Gerson for what will be the last word, I think, on this round of our matters, because we still have to do our voting and we need to hear from our elected officials, and then we need to hear from the rest of the public on this and other issues as well. So with great thanks to the NYPD for being with us, let's go to Erica Gerson, and then we'll continue on with our meeting, and there will be further public comment after that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time. And Nicole, I think you raised a great point, and I hope that the entire community board is listening. There are 15,000 of us who are feeling extremely frustrated. We outnumber other groups that are opposing us by 15 to 1. So as members, when you vote for things, please keep in mind that your job is to represent us. We're having the same problem with Helen Rosenthal, who seems to have forgotten that her job is to represent us. As a way of background, I am born and raised on the Upper West Side. I'm raising 4 children on the Upper West Side. My family has repeatedly volunteered at the homeless shelter at our synagogue on the Upper West Side. We pay a whole lot of taxes on the Upper West Side, and we donate money on top of that to support our most vulnerable populations in our neighborhood, including children and families who are food insecure. It is a fact, it is not a feeling, it is a fact that our community is overburdened with our fair share of shelters and beds. It's unclear why our Helen Rosenthal would say that our community would welcome more when we clearly are number 9 in the city for the amount that we're sheltering. And no community can do this alone. It's not about not in my backyard. It's about we have to do this in a way that's sustaining, that can allow everyone to feel safe, including the 10% of our community that lives below the poverty line, including the 10% of our community who has to walk these dangerous streets with their disabilities, including all of the people who've been relocated into our community for safe shelter. We have women and children who've left abusive situations. They deserve safe streets too. This is not about rich against poor. This is not about not in my backyard. Every neighborhood should be doing its part, and the Upper West Side has done more than its fair share for long enough. And I hope that the community board will continue to advocate for us. It's a fact that people who are chemically addicted attract drug dealers. I taught my son today how to make a call. I hope you guys caught him. I sent in a picture. It was on 79th Street by the church. It's a fact that when people are drug addicted, they bring the drug dealers. It's a fact that where there's drug dealers, drug addicts come to get more drugs. And it's a fact that people who are drug addicted need to resort to crime to fuel their addiction. This is unacceptable, and we need our community board and our elected representatives to stand up for us.
Any comments or final words from the elected, I'm sorry, from the...
And actually, sorry, if I can just ask the officers a question. When we ask at the end of a crime, if we're willing to submit our name and phone number, I didn't submit mine today because I've heard that the criminals will get our name and phone number. Is that true? And does it hinder your case against them if we don't share our name and phone number?
Just to answer that last question, there are new discovery rules in place that are a little bit more, that allows the defendant to get a little bit more information, but I think some of those rules have been kind of fixed to protect the identity of the victims. So just so you know, it was part of the original criminal justice reform package, but obviously there were concerns about that. So I believe they fixed it. I'll have to get back to you on like the details, whether it was in the law or something that the courts came up with. So I think if there's a way you can reach out to me, I can definitely get back to you with a more concrete answer on that one. I forget what your first part of that question was. I'm sorry.
I was asking if it's more difficult for your case if we don't share our contact information. Do you need us to do that to help you succeed?
I think, no, just in terms of contacting you, it would be easier, but you don't necessarily, you can share whatever information that, whatever you feel comfortable with.
Thank you.
There are, Erica, there are certain times when you call 911, certain crimes that we're investigating, that if it's an anonymous caller, it limits what the officers on the street are allowed to do. And the reason for that being, unfortunately, it happens where two people could have an argument and one walks away and calls 911 and says, yeah, he has a gun. You need to come stop him right now. And they're anonymous. So there's good reason why that is. It doesn't mean that you actually have to give the full spelling of your name or your phone number. Just saying that you're willing to meet with the police officers. If you're willing to stay on the line and answer questions to the 911 dispatcher, that immediately takes the police officers who are responding to a level where this is an accurate, verified caller who's calling about an actual crime. So that things like that do make quite a bit of a difference.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Inspector Noguchi, did you want to chime in on that before we wrap this part of our meeting up?
No, I think Neil covered it better than I did.
Well, I thank you both for being with us. We are going to hear more public testimony later in the meeting. I see my colleagues have their hands up. Is this, you're waving no? I'm sorry, you're waving yes. Is this about the NYPD? Okay, I'm going to give you each like 1 minute or 2 minutes each, guys, because the point of this exercise was to hear from the community. But I see your hands up, so I'm going to go in the order of Madeline, Amy, Sarah, and Courtney, just because that's how you appear on my screen. Go ahead. Oh, I'm Jay. I'm sorry.
Okay. I'm in the 24 precinct, and I was wondering about mask wearing. How is the police enforcing mask wearing? Because I won't go out after 5. People are not wearing masks, and if you ask them to put on, you go into these stores that even the owners are not wearing masks, or the workers are not wearing masks, and then you have people going to the stores not wearing masks. And I will comment, and I think I'm gonna get myself in trouble if I continue to do that. But I did go to police officers and ask them to enforce some young men not wearing a mask in the store, and they didn't want to do anything. How should I approach that up on the Upper West Side? Well, Upper West Side, on near Douglas houses and the grocery stores in the neighborhood. How will I deal with that from the 24 precinct?
I believe the sheriffs have kind of taken on the enforcement regarding the masks. You can certainly let us know in places, stores that you're having mask issues with, and we can definitely refer those complaints to them.
Well, they said they won't say anything to people, but they're afraid they're going to be hurt themselves. So how does the store owner deal with that?
I mean, again, like we can speak to the store owner, and again, if there's obviously a chronic issue, which seems like is the case, we can definitely refer that to the sheriffs.
Is there any way that any place that I can?
Madeline, I gotta cut this off. I'm sorry.
I just want to get the complaint. If you could put it in the chat.
Okay, thanks. Amy, and then Sarah, and then Courtney, and then Jay. Real quick, please, because we're running behind schedule here, and I apologize.
So first, I want to thank the NYPD. You guys have a thankless job, and I really do appreciate it. I'm going to take it one step further than Madeline. There are many times I live in the 20th, I work in the 24th, that police officers are engaging with the public without masks on. So I just ask you, remind your police officers, it's for their health and safety as well as ours. And I just see that too often. The other thing I'm going to make a ploy for is we should also include PS6, unless the 24th precinct can speak to their jurisdiction, which is the Frederick Douglass Center. You know, there are different issues in that community, and I'm not sure if the 24th can speak to it, but I do encourage us to think about PS6 coming. And then my question for the two precincts is, how has 911 calls increased over this summer? I live on 79th Street. I'm primarily working from home. There are so many times that I hear the ambulances pulling up on our street, on the meeting on 79th Broadway. So how has that number increased, which is different than a 311 call?
Again, in terms of the numbers, I don't know versus last year how many it is. I talked about earlier in the meeting that we had a very unusual summer that was filled with a lot of violence. So just on that, I can probably tell you that there was an increase in calls. So
that's Amy, if I may also, it's something, 911 calls is not something that we generally track because that can go to the fire department, to EMS also. It's also important to note that a lot of the times when you see a police car and an ambulance show up together, that does not mean that there was a crime. It means that both were sent. We had one just yesterday where police officers were on scene doing CPR until the fire department, until EMS were able to get there. A lot of the times it's for somebody who's just not feeling well, or it could be for somebody who's mentally not feeling very well, and the police officers will go. That does not mean that there was any kind of crime or there's any kind of anything to be worried about.
I wasn't thinking it was crime, but there is an increase of ambulances in this neighborhood on a daily basis, especially on 79th Street.
I understand. Yeah, that's something that unfortunately I would have to specifically ask for a report on that. I just don't know.
Thank you. Let's go to Sarah and then Courtney and then Jay.
Yeah, thank you. This is for the 24th precinct, and I think Peter Arnson touched on it as well. When you said, mentioned the dramatic rise in shootings, that to me is very concerning. So I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit more about that, if we know what the cause is and what's being done to address that. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So part of it, I can't get too much into it. For the most part, we know a lot of the players that are involved. Some of them are repeat players that keep showing up to shooting incidents. I can't really get into it too much. There have been arrests made. Obviously, that means there's a court case going on, so I can't get into the details of it. In instances where we're still working on the case, obviously there's an investigation going on, so I don't want to get too much into it. If it's any comfort, we have identified the individuals that are involved, and in some cases, the same individuals are popping up in multiple shooting incidents. You should also know that I've met with the district attorney's office multiple times throughout the summer. So we're working together to make sure that that the case that they're building and that we're building with them, our detective squad, is going to be a strong one, and that it's going to be when the cases do go to trial, that it's going to be a strong case, and we're looking for, obviously, that's going to get them off the streets. You should also know that our detective bureau is also involved on working on cases and looking at the individuals that are driving the violence. So I'm sorry I can't get into the details as to who's doing what, names, the causes, who's aligned with who. But if it's any reassurance, we are working with multiple partners, both outside the NYPD and within the NYPD, to try to get some of these shooters off the streets.
Thank you. Courtney, we're going to go to you and then Jay. So if we could move along, please. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you to the NYPD for being here tonight. CO Zuber, I wanted to ask a question, and I realize we're running behind time, so I'll reach out to you offline. But my question was related to last fall, CO Mallon talked about kind of what they were doing to address very localized upticks, and I wanted to see whether there was some sort of a strategy in place there. I'm happy to reach out to you offline to talk about that a little more in the interest of time. I did want to say one other thing, which is the importance of the data collection. We've been hearing a lot about the 911 calls and the 311 calls. I know people in the chat were talking about the importance of calling 311. I would just encourage everyone, we've talked about before, to download the 311 app and use that as a way to also record data. That is how the city tracks this stuff, and they need the data in order to understand trend lines. All the trends we've been talking about tonight, They need that data. So I would just encourage everyone to make sure that you have that on your phone in case you need it. It's a lot easier. It's really fast. And
Thank you. I'm sorry if I'm moving folks along too fast. If there's a quick answer to this, then please go ahead and give it to Courtney's first question.
I do have a very quick answer, and exactly what that comes down to is deployment. It's a one-word answer, and it just means that we take the statistics, we take the calls that are coming in, we analyze them, and we put our officers where they need to be when they need to be. You're going to see that with the neighborhood coordination officers, the newly appointed youth coordination officers, and a new suppression team that we're putting out. It's going to be the former anti-crime officers are being rebranded as a suppression team. So you're going to see them out there.
And do you need more funding for that?
Yes, if you're offering funding, I'll take it.
Yeah.
And just real quick, a lot of people have told us in the past that they're afraid to call 911, that they would rather call 311 because they're not sure if what they're seeing or if what they need rises to the emergency of 911. I would just like to say for everybody who's listening and to get the word out, if you're not sure, call 911. If you're not sure if this is a true emergency, call 911. Our 911 operators know that if it is not something for an immediate response to the police, they will then reroute it to 311. 311 will not upgrade things. So if you're not certain, 911.
Thanks. Jay, you're up, and then we're going to get back to the rest of our agenda with thanks to the commanding officers.
Yeah, just a quick question for Inspector Yaguchi on the open street between 87th and 95th Street on West End Avenue, which is manned by police officers, since notwithstanding the mayor's declaration when he declared the open streets requiring a community organization to do it, we have police officers who have to take care of them. And the open street itself, which in my opinion was never necessary, has created enormous problems at the intersections of 96th and Broadway and 96th and West End, with backups, bottlenecks, confused drivers, confused pedestrians. Do you have an opinion as to whether or not it's time to restore that stretch of West End Avenue to its normal configuration?
It's more of a DOT decision, but I do think that it definitely helped during the pandemic just to spread people out. And I think it was a great idea just to allow people to spread out and to walk around. But obviously, it getting dark earlier, traffic levels have come back to normal. So I agree with you. It does create a huge traffic issue leading up to 96th Street. But that will be a DOT decision. But that's what I'm observing myself. I know there's been a lot of complaints about cars going through West End. On that point, we have tried to do our best to try to get better barriers. We've had to replace our wooden barriers multiple times throughout the summer just because either drivers don't see the barriers after it gets dark, they're running into them. I've also instructed my cops to show a little bit more presence over there just so people to clear up some of the confusion that you just mentioned, because drivers are confused sometimes. And so we are doing our best to try to maintain some kind of presence there. Obviously, we do have other issues that we have to tend to, but since that complaint, we have seen that in 301, we've seen it in the West Side RAG as well. We are trying to be as responsive as we can for those people that do use that use that open street.
So thank you for that, and thank you for both of you joining us for a full hour now of what was going to be a half an hour of public comment. And so we're grateful for that. Obviously, there are more folks wanting to speak than we can accommodate. We'll do our best to reach as many of you in the next session, part of this public session, but we do have about a half an hour or 40 minutes worth of board business that we need to do right now. The first thing we need to do, so please join me in thanking the commanding officers of the 2-0 and the 2-4, Captain Zuber and Inspector Yaguchi for taking the time, especially this in the evening, to be with us and to share those thoughts. And we will continue to be we will continue to be in touch about these issues. So thank you for that. We're going to pivot now. I know that elected officials are lining up and joining us when we told them to, but we need to get our voting underway for our election to make sure that we do that before we lose quorum. So I'm going to go back to Rich, who was in the middle of explaining the last throws of how to vote. If we can do that quickly and get going, and then we can tabulate the votes while we are hearing from our elected officials. Rich, are you ready to roll?
Yes. Everyone got an email from Penny. That email has a link. That email also has a unique code. Click the link, fill out the form, put in the unique code, hit submit, and you voted.
Okay. So does anybody have a question about what they need to do now? And this is only board members, obviously. I don't see any. So, oh, Madge, go ahead, Madge.
I can't open that windmill attachment. I tried on my computer and my phone, neither one.
Okay, then the only thing I think we can do is take your vote.
You actually don't need to open that attachment. It's just a link and your code.
Yeah, so click on the link, not the document.
Oh, okay, let me try that. Forget it.
Very good. So with Josh's and Rich's permission, I'm going to say let's all vote. So if you would go to your form and click away.
So Mark, I see that there are already a number of votes. And I'm looking at the time to see when they came in.
Okay.
Peter voted at 7:41, Elizabeth at 8:20, Catherine at 8:35.
You know, as long as you're voting during the meeting, that's actually kosher. You just can't vote before the meeting or after it, for that matter.
Richard, I voted too early. Do you see my vote there? This is Robert.
Robert, then if you voted before the meeting started, then go back and do it again, please.
Oh, it was during the meeting, but.
During the meeting's okay.
Do it again.
Can you see it, Richard? You didn't call off my name.
Do it again.
Okay, we'll do.
That happened really early, and I was deleting where we got to.
Okay. If there are no more questions, I'm going to let everybody do their thing with voting. And meanwhile, we're going to welcome the most patient member of the assembly. That's Richard Gottfried is with us. Thank you for joining us. I understand Gail is with us and Linda is with us as well. And if there are any other electeds who are with us, please put your name in the chat. And Julian has his hand raised.
Just wanted to mention we might want to quickly just vote on approving the minutes from last board meeting. Maybe don't do it now, but just so we don't forget like we have in the past. Sorry.
I'm going to task you with reminding me again before we adjourn, but thank you for that so much.
We'll do that.
From the guy who wrote the minutes and did them so well, so it's only fair. Assemblymember Gottfried, thank you for joining us. Welcome to Community Board 7.
Happy to be here, and it's been terrific listening to this discussion. I want to join in thanking our precinct commanders for being here, and I want to give a special shout out to Julian Giordano, who is attending my high school alma mater, and Jerry Nadler, our congressman, and I have been fast friends since we met in our first week at Stuyvesant High School, September, many, many years ago. Two things I want to mention quickly. One, the terrific news we got from the courts a few days ago about the victory, at least at the state Supreme Court level, about the West 66th Street building. The positive ruling on the so-called mechanical voids decision is really terrific. And hopefully that will either convince the developer, or if not, hopefully it will be upheld on appeal. Last thing I want to say is, there's been a lot of advocacy for people to vote by mail. People should certainly do their absentee ballot. If you can mail it in, if you can drop it off at an early voting site. But I really want to encourage everyone who is willing and able to do so to vote in person. Vote in person at an early voting site or at your regular polling place on election day. It's really important that on election night, the national TV networks are going to be broadcasting a nationwide total vote. It's really important that the votes, let me avoid blatant partisanship, but it's really important that the West Side's votes show up as part of that national total. If that national total is not a good one, I'm concerned we're going to see some really nasty events going on in this country. I think you all know what I'm talking about. By the way, if you do vote absentee, you can still vote in person. You're not voting twice. The Board of Elections, before they open the absentee voting envelopes, they look to see whether you voted in person. If you did, they never open your absentee ballot. So if you want to mail in or drop off an absentee vote, that's great. But if at all possible, vote in person, either at one of the early voting days or on election day. That's my message.
Thank you, Assembly Member. Appreciate it and appreciate the delicacy of the no partisan politics at the community board part of it. Thank you very much. We're going to go next to our borough president, Gail Brewer. I understand you're with us and are unmuted.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dick Gottfried. I don't think you or Jerry Nadler, as fabulous as you are, were ever the head of student council at Stuyvesant. And I believe that Mr. Giordano is either incoming or already head of Stuyvesant Student Council. Just throwing that out.
Well, wait a minute, Gail. I never got elected anything in high school, but Jerry Nadler got elected to every position, including school president. He was the most phenomenal candidate in the history of Stuyvesant High School.
All right. Well, I guess Julian's got his work cut out for him because I'm putting my money on Julian. But anyway, I just had to have fun with that one. You've got a very amazing board member, needless to say.
You bet.
Just a couple of things. The schools, I guess we are doing, there are no devices. I don't, you have, there are parents on the Zoom. My phone is ringing off the wall. Not all in District 3, but certainly around the borough. District 1 on the Lower East Side is missing 534 devices. Just to give you an example, it's 500 children who are not doing virtual because they don't have a device. So that's a huge issue. We're focused on it. We're going to continue, just FYI. Second, we did give out masks and sanitizer and census information the first day of schools for the elementary school children. And, we're just pushing census. I know you're sick of census, but what we're now with the extra month, we have, we did a mailing to the Manhattanites who left. I think I might have mentioned that 35,000 of them from the ballot requested during the primary. The League of Women Voters did it. There's been some good returns. We took out ads in the island, Connecticut, and the Catskills saying, if you live in Manhattan, you must fill out the census with your Manhattan address. We are trying everything. We are also focused on the large buildings. It's not just that people, enumerators can't get in, because I have to say that between Revney and the 32BJ, they've been very helpful. It's just who's in that apartment. So we're trying to get information that way through the management, through the doormen. Without getting into all the specifics, we gave out money to nonprofits that came from the governor. We ourselves sent out 280 postcards. And what we're going to do in the month of October, in addition to all the above, is we're going to focus in each community board, there are 12 in Manhattan, on the lowest performing census tract in that community board. And I don't know what it is in Board 7, but we will find out. So that's just, we're trying everything, because the people who left, to be honest with you, are killing the New York City numbers, because they used to be in the 80th percentile in terms of filling out the census. The other thing I just want to mention is helicopters. I am swamped with helicopter complaints. I don't know how many are coming from New Jersey. The only ones that are from New York are coming from downtown heliport, which we've tried to eliminate all those that are tourists. Anyway, just to say, it's frustrating. People are flying. I don't know how much is tourists. I don't know how much is the going to the airports, et cetera, but we're going to try once again. This is like the deja vu, because the numbers are increasing. We don't have tourists now, so I don't know who in the world is flying in these helicopters. Other issue, which is endless, is the after hours variances. I got a call today, until midnight, somebody is allowed to be doing development. I don't, who can give such a DOB permit? But anyway, all the after hours issues are ongoing and we're gonna be focusing on that. I wanna mention the masks because I think the police officers get mixed messages. We wrote a long time ago saying, everybody's complaining about police officers not wearing masks. And I have great respect for the 2-4 and the 2-0. But basically the answer is, I don't like the answer. The answer is if you as a police officer are working with your fellow colleagues, you don't have to wear a mask. I don't understand that because we all see that and then we figure, oh, they're not wearing a mask. Why should I wear a mask? They should wear a mask all the time. But I do think they're getting mixed messages from the powers that be. And so that's what has to change because if you're told when you're talking to your fellow officers, you don't have to wear it, there's something weird about that. I want to thank Dick Godfrey for mentioning 50 West 66th Street and what who knows what the future is. We like the current decision that has been made, mostly about the mechanical voids are illegal. It's also true that there's a BSA challenge in the works because there is a deadlocked tie as to what should happen with this building before the BSA, but we haven't gotten any kind of a report. We need a decision what they actually decided in writing. That's the only way that an Article 78 challenge in court can be brought is when there is a decision in writing. So we've written to the BSA asking for an official write-up of that decision. There was just a little win with the historic district, Central Park Historic District today. A developer wanted to make some additions to a brownstone on my block, actually on 95th Street, and the Landmarks Preservation Commission said, you got to do it the right way. So thank you, LPC, for that. I worry about the seniors and food. It's more of a citywide, borough-wide issue, but we all care about the seniors. The senior centers are not open all day long. I was at 3 precincts tonight because it's night out, and all the seniors want to know when is their senior center open. They're not open, and they're just desperate for that collegiality. So in November, supposedly, DIPTA is going to take over food for seniors, and I don't know how that's going to work. So we wrote a very long letter, which we have shared with the community board, and Penny can send that out. But I think that's something that you may want to pay attention to. The issue of open data is something that, we spend a lot of time on. There is a FY20 open data annual report. I think it might be something that you might want to look at to see if there's anything in Community Board 7 that would be relevant. It does help say what is going on in your community. We're all waiting for February 2021. I don't know what's going to be in the survey that is mandated. Every owner needs to tell the public what is vacant in terms of the storefront on their property. You know how challenging the storefronts and the small businesses are facing when we have the pandemic. So it will be a very different report, not a great report, but that's what it is. It has to take place. I want to thank Mark Diller in particular for suggesting that we do the anti-bias trainings. The Commission on Human Rights did with us, and we're going to be doing some more ongoing. And so just stay tuned for that information. I do think you should know that Deputy Borough President Alvin Bonilla is going to go to a foundation. He's gotten a very wonderful job at a foundation, and he will be leaving us. And of course, can't imagine anybody who has taught me more than Alvin Bonilla, and I know he's worked hard on behalf of the community board. So I just want to let you know. In terms of what can the community board do, just to end, Mark, it's a very challenging question and a good one. I do think this issue of 311, quality of life, NYPD, where is the nexus that makes sense? Because it's not clear. And I think that would be something that every community board should look at to see what do you think as a community, the Goddard Riversides, the social workers, the caseworkers should be doing, what should NYP be doing, and how do we deal with individuals who have this very major mental illness on the streets? As Peter Arndt stated, it is not how it should be, and we got to deal with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gail. And my God, we're losing Aldrin. That's huge.
It is.
But Godspeed. Keeping us moving, I have Linda Rosenthal, and I've now seen Helen Rosenthal, and Congressman Jerry Nadler and Robert Jackson are all in the queue. So I'm going to go in that order. Linda Rosenthal, you have the floor. Welcome to Community Board 7.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me. And I too listened to a lot of the earlier public session. I would like to point out there was an article in the New York Times just the other day about how the bail reform has actually not affected the crime numbers. And you all can read it for yourselves. But bail reform, bail was never meant to keep people behind bars, because you're not guilty until you're proven guilty and then you're supposed innocent. Bail, so we removed that. Bail is not used that way. So I can talk a lot more about this offline, but a police NYPD report that was not distributed, but the New York Times got its hands on it, said that bail reform did not cause this spike in crime. So just want to clarify that. I had a bill which was ended up in the budget, which went into effect the other day, and that is the removal of the pink tax. The pink tax means that women's products, or products that are marketed to women, maybe by being pink, not blue, often cost more, and the same is for services. You know, dry cleaning a woman's coat may be more than a men's coat, or a haircut may be more. That is now against the law. And so I was very proud to be part of that effort. The mechanical voids, I hope any of you who are interested can read the decision by Justice Arthur Engoron, which so clearly states the absurdity of the mechanical void that developers have used to go higher. And it's just so logical, and I hope when they appeal that the judges on the next level will see the ridiculousness of the use of mechanical voids to get around zoning, which is meant to, zoning in those cases is supposed to control the height and the bulk of the building, and mechanical voids just are used to circumvent those very rules. And I have a bill in Albany with Senator Jackson that would change the mechanical voids and make the terms stricter in the multiple dwelling law. And I think that needs to happen. Special music school and the rest of the schools in MLK is very concerning. I know that in MLK, the HVAC system hasn't worked properly for years. School construction has spent millions of dollars over the years to try to fix it. And it hasn't been fixed. The special music school's in the basement with no windows and no circulation in the air. So I'm in touch with the city and DOE and various other stakeholders about that very issue. Okay, flu shot day. And I know some drugstores have run out of flu shots. I have my annual flu shot day on October 20th. The shots are supplied by Mount Sinai, and we will be having it at Goddard Riverside Lincoln Square Neighborhood Center, Tuesday, October 20th from 10 to 3. We do not have the high dose senior shots, but we have the others. So if you're interested, just email or call my office. I'm also having a rat academy, walking around the neighborhood and getting plenty of calls about rats. So we're having a rat academy that CB7 is co-sponsoring, which is wonderful. And that will be November 17th. I think the rats don't have as much to eat, so they're foraging through the garbage that's put out there. In Albany, we intend to go back. We have a lot of revenue raisers to tax multimillionaires and billionaires. We were going to wait until the stimulus package, because then we could see what the shortfall was. You know, president on steroids, and that's literally true. now said call off all the talks on stimulus, which actually punishes the vulnerable people in America. So we'll see what happens. I believe we will go back, and now it's probably after the election. And don't forget to vote. And go to Vote NYC if you have questions on if you're registered. You have till October 9th to register in person or via email if you have online if you have a DMV license. But go register and then go vote. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. That's vote.nyc, by the way. Thank you, Assembly Member. And we're going to go immediately to Council Member Helen Rosenthal, followed by our Congressman Jerry Nadler, followed by Senator Robert Jackson. That's the order in which I saw you. I apologize if it's not the order in which you arrived. Council Member, please unmute and join us.
Mark, and I've actually been multi-Zooming for the last hour and a half. So I heard quite a few comments about the homeless shelters, about the people's fear being on the streets and their questions to Captain Zuber and his responses. Indeed, he and I speak quite frequently because I'm always trying to separate out rumor from reality. And I hope he was helpful with that tonight. I've also spent a lot of the time on the phone speaking with many of you who spoke up tonight. Happy to have another conversation with you if you still are having questions. I just feel terrible that people feel so afraid to come out of their home. It's really rough. It's really rough, and I empathize with that. I'm not going to bring up some of the issues that my colleagues have already raised. Great news on 55 West 66th Street. Fill out your census form. You have to the end of October. Voting, food distribution, MLK, helicopters, flu shots, all very important. So here's new information. We'll be having a shredding event on October 18th, which is a Sunday from 12 to 3. We're co-hosting, this is in the northern part of my district, so we're co-hosting with Assembly Member O'Donnell, State Senator Jackson. It will be at the corner of 97th and Amsterdam Avenue. My office is having a housing clinic tomorrow night from 6 to 7 for tenants with legal or housing court related questions. So you're welcome to join us there. Let's see. Composting, I don't think anyone mentioned composting yet. And plastic bags. I was able to bring my composting over to the Green Market at 79th Street on Sunday. They're open again. The location is on 77th Street, closer to Central Park West. They are there on Sundays from 9 to 3 and also at our Green Market on Fridays from 8 to 12:30 on 97th and Columbus, 97th and Columbus. Starting October 19th, New York State will begin enforcing the 5-cent fee charged to customers who use the store provided bags. So we've been handing out the orange go bags. We have a few more. If you need them, let my office know. But you're going to need to bring your own bag. Lastly, sadly, we had to kick out a member of the New York City Council this week, which we did. His abuse of his staff became intolerable, both sexual harassment as well as just personal interactions with his staff members. It was nothing we want to see in our elected officials and how they treat their staff. And so we went to the very extreme thing of expelling him. It was very painful to be a part of. Feel really bad for my colleague and for his constituents. And I just got off a panel discussion on maternal mortality and morbidity. If the health committee is interested in pursuing the work that we're doing in the council to address the, ridiculously high rates of Black maternal mortality and morbidity in this city, I'm more than happy to chat with you about that. Thank you.
If I could cavil for the on the HHS committee, they've been doing an amazing amount of work about, among other things, the disparities in health outcomes. And I think you'll see that in our district needs statement. Thank you, council member. I'm going to move us along. We have with us Senator Robert Jackson and Congressman Jerry Nadler. I think we saw Jerry Nadler first, so we're going to call on him first, and then Robert Jackson. Congressman, the floor is yours. Welcome to Community Board 7.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be with you this evening. I want to start by saying I hope everyone is remaining safe and healthy and taking precautions to keep themselves that way. As you may know, last week, the House passed an updated HEROES Act, which was a modified bill from the legislation we passed back in May. The legislation once again provides economic relief for American families by providing stimulus checks, restoring and expanding the weekly $600 federal unemployment payments through next January, bolstering housing assistance through direct rent relief, and increasing SNAP benefits by 15%. It supports small businesses by improving the Paycheck Protection Program and providing the hardest hit small businesses, nonprofits, and entrepreneurs with second loans. It provides state and local governments with the funding they need to help weather this crisis. New York City, under this bill, will receive almost $21 billion, and New York State will receive almost $21 billion, and New York City, $9 billion. It provides essential support for transit infrastructure, contains substantial assistance for the MTA, which will allow the MTA to continue operations into 2021. It fully funds the Postal Service and provides states with new resources to safeguard the integrity and security of our elections and ensure the integrity of the 2020 census. I'm incredibly proud that this package contains two pieces of legislation that I sponsored, the Restaurants Act and the Save Our Stages Act for New York City to provide additional targeted assistance for independent restaurants and live entertainment venues and theaters, many of which have been devastated by the economic impacts of the pandemic. We will continue fighting to ensure that Americans and our institutions get the relief and resources they need during this trying time. I don't want to take up too much of your time, so I'll leave it there. Obviously, please do not hesitate to reach out to my staff if we can be of any assistance.
Thank you, Congressman, and we thank you for the sponsorship of your bill about helicopters. We heard earlier this evening that they are plaguing the Upper West Side as if we were a ballpark. And so anything that can be done to, I know that's a federal issue, not a city or a state issue. We're grateful for that bill of yours and Congressman Maloney's, and whatever we can do to push that along. Our board passed a resolution in support of that last winter, and we'll send you another copy of it just in case a little extra nudge from the Upper West Side would be helpful. So thank you for that as well. And I'm going to go directly to Senator Robert Jackson. Thank you for joining us, Senator. Welcome to Community Board 7.
Well, thank you, Mark, and members of CB7 and the public that is zooming in. I was listening to all of the conversations and your business meeting and everything, so it's a good opportunity to hear an entire board meeting. And obviously I have my community liaison, Hope K is on also. She's my liaison to CB4 and CB7. Here's the bottom line. As you know, all of the electors, and Gail and everyone else, we have been basically trying to up our census count all over the 31st Senatorial District. And obviously up in the northern part, Washington Heights and inward, it's pretty high compared to the southern part. We are so low in the southern part of my district, which is Midtown, and the Chelsea area, I go down to 26th Street and 9th Avenue, that we really have to work on it because that means money and that means resources and legislation. We all know that. And then everyone knows that Friday, we hope they know, is the last day to register to vote. We're surprised that so many people, that when we set up our tents to go all over the place, that are not registered to vote or have not done their census. It's just amazing to me that every day on TV, on radio, and everywhere else, you hear about census and voter registration, that so many people are not. But let me just talk about what's happening overall, and many of my colleagues talked about it. As you know, there was a Zoom meeting with our U.S. Senator Chuck Schumer, and basically talking about what Jerry Nadler talked about. And in discussions that I've had at the state level, the state is not going to do anything as far as the budget director, basically April 30th and June 30th, he could have said that the state is so much in the red and give us 10 days to either act or accept whatever recommendations he makes as far as cutting services. But I'm glad that the governor and him are not doing that. We're trying to wait to see what's happening at the federal level before anything. And obviously, all of us are concerned about the budget and the impact that's going to have on our communities. And as you know, 20% of all education funding around the state has been held up. There's layoffs in Rochester and Yonkers and what have you. And obviously, New York City budget has the flexibility to absorb that and not really have a negative impact. But so that's what we're doing. We're waiting for that. But obviously, the most important thing right now is the federal government acting. And if they don't act, and we hope that they will, then the state of New York is going to have to act. And obviously, about 2 months ago, the majority leader and Carl Heastie, the Speaker of the State Assembly, came together and said that they are willing to consider a tax on wealthier New Yorkers. So that's a big thing to do. And so right now we're waiting. We can go back at any time, but there's no need to go back until we know what the financial situation is going to be. And I've talked to some people today about the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, and that's a major issue. But I told them the most major issue right now is the budgetary issue to make sure that people have food and people have shelter over their head, and that their health, they're surviving this pandemic. Those are the most important issues that we're addressing up in Albany. And so we're waiting to go back in order to deal with that. But in the meantime, I'm just going out in the community trying to do what we can to survive. And obviously the homelessness situation, we have an obligation under our state constitution to take care of the poor. That's our obligation, that's our constitution. And so we have to come together and find a way to do that with dignity and respect for everyone. And obviously by juggling people all over the place is not the way to do it. And listen, one of the 3 hotels on the Upper West Side is in my district, and I have many other homeless shelters up in Northern Manhattan. So we have to accept it, but it has to come with the services that are needed to protect everyone. And as far as the community, everyone, I say the most important issue overall is the safety and security of the people that we represent. If you're not safe in your home, in your community, then that's a problem that we collectively have to address. Thank you, Mark, and thank members of Community Board 7.
Thank you, Senator. Terrific way to end this hearing from our elected officials. Appreciate it very much. I'm going to take a quick moment to give a brief chair's report, mostly because the elected officials have stolen all of my thunder and related all the important details. So I can make this relatively quick. I want to alert both my colleagues on the board and the folks in the audience that there are 2 changes to our usual schedule for the coming month. One is that the November full board is usually the first Tuesday of the month. I'm guessing that most of us will have something else on our minds that day. So our full board meeting will be the next day, Wednesday, November 4th. And some of us will be popping champagne corks and some of us will be crying in our beer, but that'll be the day. Also the October Housing Committee has been rescheduled from this coming Monday to October 26th. Because the meeting would otherwise fall on, well, depending on who you are, it'll either fall on Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day. I want to renew my thanks before the results are announced. I want to renew my thanks to the election committee for charting this new territory for us and doing it so expertly. That's Josh Cohen, Rich Robbins, Christian Cordova, Barbara Adler, and Susan Schwartz. You have, I think, all of our thanks. I'm seeing clapping hands. I want to remind everybody that the steering committee, yes, please, Cap, or Julian, of course, is snapping his fingers as is the current phase. I'm showing my age. And don't think we don't boast about you when we talk about our community board, Julian. Steering committee is on the 20th, and that will be where we hash out a single set of budget priorities based on what the committees come up with. There are a couple of things that we've heard tonight and a couple of things that we've heard that don't fit squarely into any one committee, such as how the budget of the NYPD should figure into this, as well as the budget for the Department of Sanitation. And so we will work to make sure that we have all the information you need so that you can vote on priorities that make sense for our community. We've been sending around to committee chairs the questions and answers filled in by the agencies that did participate in the Office of Management and Budget consultations, and we'll make sure that they are as available as we can. We're going to look to put all of them up on the website so that anybody who wants to see them can see them. We've already mentioned the court decision, already mentioned helicopters. A shout out to both the One Block UWS and the Broadway malls, both of whom have sponsored cleanups on a grassroots basis. They have done a wonderful job. It's actually a lot of fun to do it. I mean, you know, I get my hands a little dirty, but it's actually a great thing, and I congratulate them for the initiative in a time of, you know, showing how we can come together at a time when services are down. And I'll end with the 2020 census.gov as well. That's my chair's report. I think the only thing left to do is to call on the elections committee and see if we have results, and then to return to the public session, which will include reports by elected officials, representatives when the elected is not with us. Josh and or Rich, are we ready to report, or do you need more time?
So
go ahead.
Josh, I was just going to raise that there are 3 people who are attending the meeting who have not voted. So it's Blanche, Richard Ash, and Will Ortiz.
Okay, so let's give them 5 minutes more to do that. If they have any questions, please.
I don't know why I can't be heard.
Hi, Blanche.
Hi.
So are you able to vote? Did you get the email, and are you able to vote?
I have gotten the email. I have been trying to vote. Obviously, I can't be heard. I don't know why.
Well, we can hear you now. There's a link in the email you got from Penny. Click on that link, vote for whomever you vote for, and then there's a code at the bottom of the email. Please put that into the form. And then, so we'll give you a couple of more minutes to do that. And
okay.
If you prefer, we can take your vote over the phone here.
Why don't you take my vote over the phone?
Okay. Okay, why don't you tell us your vote then? And Rich, can you record it, please?
Yes.
I am voting acclamation for all the candidates, but you do have competition for the vice 1 and 2. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Yes. If you'd rather, you could put it in chat privately if you don't want to publicly say who you're picking first and second.
Tell me again the 2 vice chairs.
Andrew Ridgey and Doug Clyman.
Clyman, Ridgey, in that order.
Great. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And who are the other 2 that, Rich, that still have to vote?
Richard Ash and Will Ortiz.
Very good. Oh, we have a late arrival, so we're going to stall for a couple of minutes to give them a chance to vote. Senator Brad Hoylman has joined us, I've just been told. And so Senator, please unmute and you can chill for a couple of minutes for our voting process. I'm kidding. But if you would join us, welcome to Community Board 7. And then after that, we're going to call the election vote wherever we are at that point, if that's okay with Josh and with Rich. I'm seeing
Hey, Mark,
nodding
this
heads.
is Mark, this is William. I've been having internet issues the whole day. I'm actually using this on my iPad. I voted using voted via the email, but I vote for all people. I voted for everyone.
We do need you to express a preference for the first and second vice chair. Sorry to put you on the spot. You can put it in chat if you prefer.
No, that's totally fine. I would for first chair, I select Andrew.
Very good. So
Thank you.
we have a tie on the over the phone votes. Richard Ashe, you're the last one to be heard. Senator Hoylman, why don't you join us and give your report, and then we will call the election. Senator, do I need to do something? Let me see if I can. It might be. He might be in the. I'm not seeing him. Does anybody else see him? Oh, I got him. Hang on.
You need to promote him.
Well, I did. So let's see what happens. Senator, are you with us?
I just promoted him, which might.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
All right. Senator, you're with us. Welcome to Community Board 7.
Thank you for the promotion. Thank you, everyone. Good to see everyone. Good to see my colleagues, in particular my colleague, Councilmember Rosenthal. We were out protesting today in our district, our joint district, the fact that musicians who perform on late night television shows are not paid residuals for the Fallon Show or Jimmy Kimmel when those shows broadcast on YouTube or other streaming, nor are they paid health benefits. So thank you, Councilmember Rosenthal, for being there today with us. I wanted to make mention of the fact that my office, taking a page out of the council member's book, instituted something called community board budgeting, rather than participatory budgeting, which we know the council has used to great effect. We asked you how we should spend the capital dollars that were allotted to my office, your tax dollars, and you chose to have $250,000 dedicated to Little Engine Playground on Riverside, of course, between 67th and 68th. The Parks Department is going to replace and upgrade the safety surface and apply any potential excess of funds to upgrading the play equipment at that playground. So thank you for the input. We've put that in, Mark, and that is thanks to CB7, and we'll continue hopefully in future years to use community board budgeting as a way to allocate our capital dollars that we get through the state Senate. And then finally, I'll be very brief. A lot of my constituents, a lot of you have pointed out the fact that you often see police officers not wearing face masks. I sent a letter to the police commissioner near the same time. Governor Cuomo and Mayor de Blasio also called on law enforcement to wear face masks as a way to model good behavior for the rest of us. We know that the occupant of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue does not do that, but we would like the NYPD to do that. There has been a directive sent by the police commissioner to his law enforcement to do so. It's a little vague. It doesn't say what sanctions there will be if an officer doesn't follow the law, which it is a law, it's an executive order, as well as the fact that apparently no officer has been cited yet. That said, it's a good first step, and I hope we see more officers wearing face masks to protect the public health and serve as an example. The other thing is, I'm very unlikely, I don't know about you, to go up to an officer if I have a problem if he or she is not wearing a face mask. So hopefully we'll see a change in behavior because the people who enforce the law should also follow the law. Thanks, Mark. Thank
you, Senator, and thank you for that report. And thank you for the funding is what I meant to say. It turns out to be a tricky thing to find that. I'm grateful to our Parks and Environment Committee for finding a project that was worthy of the support that were able to offer us, and that will make a meaningful difference in the safety of children. So thank you for that. I am now going to go back to the Elections Committee and see if we have a result.
We do.
Care to
Mark
share?
Diller. Yeah, I will. Mark Diller has been elected the chair. Andrew Ridgey is first chair, Doug Clyman is second chair, and Beverly Donahue and Julian Giordano are secretary. Congratulations to all.
Congratulations, everybody. And again, my thanks to the committee. Yeah, well done. Okay, so we now are going to continue on with the public session. It is 9:30. Let's keep going for a while and see how far we can get with the folks who want to be heard. I do see Liam Galligan, who represents Assemblymember Danny O'Donnell with his hand up. But Clary, before I get to Liam, Clary, did you have a question for somebody, or because I see your hand up?
I wanted to thank Brad Hoylman and also you, Mark. The project in Riverside South to change redo the safety surface at Little Engine Playground is going forward in all the morass of what's going on with capital projects and funding in the Parks Department, thanks to COVID. Good news that we got the other day in an exhibit from the Parks Department is that project is one of very few that have now been completely cleared to get started and is getting started. And we're very grateful for that.
Thank you, Clary. I'm going to go now to Liam Galligan, and I don't know that there are any other, if any other representatives of elected officials have a report, we're going to ask you to keep it quick, but please go ahead, Liam, and meanwhile, if the others would raise their hands so I can see who else might want to make such a report, that would be great. Otherwise, we're going to keep moving with our public session. So Liam, the floor is yours. Liam, you do need to unmute, and I'll mention again that you're representing Assemblymember Danny O'Donnell.
Yes, hello, sorry about that. My laptop mic just spazzed out and is not working, so I'm using my cell phone, so I apologize for the poor video quality. Just a few things. One, again, just to reiterate, Councilmember Rosenthal said earlier, we are hosting a free shredding on October 18th with Senator Jackson as well, on 97th and Amsterdam Avenue between 12 and 3. Again, this will be, everyone should be wearing masks, so it will be socially distanced. So it's a great way of getting all the documents that have been stacked up over the 6 months. And popular event, people seem to love it every time we host one. Second thing, if anyone's still having trouble with their unemployment insurance or PUA, please reach out to us. Even if you live in our district or the southern part of the Upper West Side that isn't our district, we're happy to help everyone just to get them through, because I know it's hard to get through to Department of Labor right now. Third thing, just to clarify some points on bail reform with repeat offenders. Under the bail reform, the updates to the bail reform in this year's budget, if you actually read the criminal procedure law that the bail laws fall under, if you commit an offense while you have been released, no matter what the offense is, if you commit a second offense, then you will be subject potentially to bail. That's in the law. So I encourage people to read the relevant parts of the criminal procedure law, which is section 510.10. It's a pretty short section of the law, kind of explains how bail works. And I guess that's it. Again, if anyone has any quality of life issues with a city or state agency, please feel free to reach out to our office.
Thank you so much, Liam, for Assemblymember O'Donnell. And I see that Mike Stinson from Comptroller Scott Stringer's office, it's getting late and I'm getting a little tongue-tied here, forgive me. So Mike Stinson from Comptroller Scott Stringer's office, please join us and welcome to Community Board 7.
Thanks, Mark, and I hope everyone had a great holiday for those that celebrate, great holidays for those that celebrate. Last month, Congressman Espaillat and Comptroller Stringer sent a joint letter to the New York City Department of Sanitation and the Health and Mental Hygiene Commissioner, calling on the city to take immediate steps to address the overflowing litter baskets and increased rat sightings along the city's commercial corridors. Citing dozens of complaints from business owners across the city, Congressman Espaillat and Controller Stringer underscored that the mounds of garbage are both unsightly and unsanitary, driving away customers at a time when struggling small businesses are relying on foot traffic for survival and attracting rats and vermin, which spread disease while our city is in the midst of a deadly pandemic. Congressman Espaillat and Controller Stringer proposed recommendations to remedy the untenable piles of trash accumulating in our city streets, sidewalks, and public spaces, including working with business improvement districts. The Upper West Side has 3 great ones, and business owners to provide flexibility to businesses that want to add street bins at their own expense, and broadening the Clean Curbs pilot program. And then just today, we sent a letter to Department of Education and the mayor to allow non-binary and gender non-conforming students the ability to choose their own gender identity in the DOE's administrative remote learning ecosystem. The controller's letter follows reports from concerned parents that their children are being forced to choose between only male or female in the online portal for students to participate in school instruction. Controller Stringer emphasized that as the largest school district in the nation with 1.1 million children, New York City's public school system should be a leader in ensuring that every child, no matter their gender identity, or expression, is treated equally with respect and can learn in a welcoming environment. So I'll leave it at that. Again, as every other elected elected rep said, fill out your census form, vote, get a flu shot. My son, my 9-month-old, just got his flu shot yesterday. So please do it if you can and if you're healthy. Thank you, and see you next month.
Thank you, Mike. All right, so we're gonna pivot back to our public session, and I'm going to take a moment here just to introduce the next speaker. We talk a lot in this space about the homeless. But there's a brave homeless person who has joined us and will speak for himself. And so I am actually very honored that he has chosen to speak with us, and am confident that we will receive him the way that we should. And so with no further ado, I'll use the name that I met him by, which is Shams, the Homeless Hero. Shams, would you please unmute and address us for about 2 minutes, please?
Yes, can you hear me?
We sure can, go ahead.
All right, first of all, thank you for allowing me to be here. It's great to be amongst this community. I lived here previously for 3 years, and this has always been a great community. Now being here at the Lucerne under Project Renewal, it's a different experience, but I'm still feeling so great about being in this community, and I'm just honored to just be amongst all of you to hopefully be able to approach the issue of homelessness in this community and the city of New York in a way that would allow for us to be creative in how we are able to deal with the homeless crisis as it is now, and as it may get even worse, as the months come. So one thing I want to say is I just want to say that a couple of days ago, we did an event that was billed as a free store event and a ribbon of love to show the love that the community had for, and the support that they had for those of us that are homeless, experiencing homelessness, and in the Lucerne. Unfortunately for me, for the first time in my 51 years, I literally saw hate and racism up close and personal. I'm the descendant of slaves. I'm the product of over 400 years of overt and covert oppression, but I've never seen hate like that. And I was so moved, I wasn't angry. I really was confused because I never experienced it. And I didn't understand what was coming from the mouths of, residents of the community. And I just wish I was able to talk to them and say to them that, look, this is a miseducation thing. You really are not speaking on facts. You really don't know. And I wish that we were able to come together and clear up and clarify some of these things so you can have a better understanding of what and those of us that are experiencing homelessness go through. And we had some discourse, but it wasn't in the right forum. And so I just want to say that, you know, I believe that a lot of people have legitimate concerns. And my objective as the homeless hero and as an advocate for myself, for my fellow residents, I also am an advocate for any community that I'm in, because I want to feel safe. I want to be around a place that's serene and, you know, that's devoid of crime and negative activity and stuff like that. And I fight from within and I fight from without, so that we all can have a great experience. I don't like it in the shelters, and I don't like it in wherever we're at. The thing is that, unfortunately, the city did us a disservice. They did the community a disservice when they moved us here so quickly without establishing any rapport with the local community and all of the supportive services that are in the community. They just dropped us here. And naturally, there were gonna be problems. So I was opposed to that. I don't support that. And I, along with other people, have, not, I don't want to say fought against that, but we try to combat that and find ways to creatively remedy that. And that's what we did after the first 3 weeks of us being here. And I just wish that the community would give us that chance, would, you know, talk to us and let us know their concerns and see how we could come together and find a way that we could work things out. Most of the things that have been attributed to us are not even factual, unwarranted, and unfortunately are hate-filled and racist in some ways. And that doesn't mean that an individual, because they want to see a good quality of life in their neighborhood, is a racist. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the negative portrayal by the media put us in a situation where we could be targeted in a hateful and racist manner. And I just wish that we could all come together so that we can eliminate that. So at this point, you know, thankfully to the Open Hearts Initiative, those of us who were traumatized by what was being depicted of us in the media, we're able to transform that hate into into love, something that many of us have been devoid of. A lot of us that experience substance use disorder, experience mental illness, experiencing homelessness, we're in this position for a reason. And after a few years of this, we find ourselves in a situation where we forget what love is. And thankfully, and this is the first time that many of us have experienced love from total strangers. And it's transformed us in so many ways. And so it turned me to where I said, you know what, there's no reason to be angry. It's not the fault of residents who disagree with something that the city did. It's not their fault. It's not our fault either. But what I want to put forth from here on is a message of hope and healing. I would like to see the community come together in a positive way, whether we're here or whether we go somewhere else. The fact I lived in this community, I know this is a good community. I know the people are good in this community. I would like to personally see us be able to come together and, despite our differences, be able to find ways that we could say, look, if this ever happens again, or if this goes on like this, let us do it in the right way. Let's make sure that we hold the city accountable. Let's make sure we hold the elected officials accountable. Let's make sure we hold the service providers accountable to ensure that when anybody comes into our community, that they understand what this community represents, and at the same time, we are able to do things in the right way.
Thank you very much for joining us. And for your comments. And I think we all would want to take a pause for a second after that. Thank you. So there are, of course, a lot of different issues that are being conflated at once in this environment. And everyone's perspective is important in hearing this. So I thank you for sharing and sharing so directly. We're going to continue with our public session. I did allow the only homeless person who was going to join us. I did allow him to speak a little longer than otherwise, but I hope I can be forgiven for that chair's privilege. And I'm going to now turn to, and I'm going to go back to the list of people who signed up to speak. And I see the name Sarah Mahmood, followed by Amanda, and I always mispronounce this. Is it Fialk or Fialk? Followed by Ryan Stout. So in that order. And I see hands in the raised hands. I don't know how many more we can get to, but we're using the sign up sheet that Rich put into the chat. Rich, if you would put it in again, please. That's what we're using to sign people up to speak.
Mark, I'm looking for the next person. Could you please mention?
Sorry. Sarah Mahmood, M-A-H-M-O-U-D, 120 Riverside Boulevard, followed by Amanda Fialk. If Amanda is ready, why doesn't Amanda start? And then Ryan Stout.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Thanks. First of all, Shams, thank you so much for sharing that. That was really brave and really powerful. And I'm sorry that happened on Sunday. You know, I think it's important that we have open dialogue and that different opinions are heard, but there's a way to do that respectfully. And some of the language that was used that day that you guys had to hear must have been extremely upsetting. I've heard a lot tonight about safety concerns in our community. And I've heard a lot of calls for more security, for cameras. I heard Captain Zuber talk about us calling 911 when in doubt, using it a lot. I didn't really hear anything about the safety concerns for both Black and Brown people or for our mentally ill homeless individuals and how they are impacted by a heightened security or police presence. I live on the Upper West Side. My husband is Black, my son is Black. And what I know is that Black people, unfortunately, are killed and have been killed at high rates by law enforcement. What we know is that 1/4, a quarter of all police shootings, the victim has a mental illness diagnosis. So I do think it's important that we also address the safety concerns of those individuals when we're talking about safety in the community. I heard somebody mention that perception is reality. And when talking about crimes and when talking about crimes in the neighborhood. And, you know, that statement also makes me a little bit uncomfortable because I know that Black people are often perceived as criminals, that mentally ill individuals are perceived as dangerous. A crime is not a crime. It's not a reality unless it's happened. Just because you perceive something to be a crime or perceive somebody to be dangerous because they're mentally ill or because of the color of their skin doesn't.
I need you to wrap up, please.
So I would call on us to come together as a community to make sure that our Black and Brown population is protected as we're calling for more of a police presence.
Thank you very much. We're going to go, I'm going to try to move us along now. So we're going to go to Ryan Stout unless we found Sarah Mahmood. After Ryan Stout, I have Sam Luber. There was a question in the chat from Melinda Thaler. I do have you on the list. You're down a bit, but we'll get to you. Or we'll try anyway. Go ahead.
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so, I think what's going on recently is, a culmination of a lot of factors. The neighborhood's been in decline for a couple years. I've been on the Upper West Side for 15 years. It's gradually gotten worse and worse. I was almost mugged 2 years ago. A year ago, I started seeing people shooting up on the street. my most recent run-in with crime here was a man just trying to break into cars on 75th Street between West End and Riverside in the middle of the day. So again, calling 911, 311, and calling the precinct, doing all these things they're telling us. My question, I'm not sure if they answered or not when they were on the line, is when does data turn into action? Because there is something going on here.
Thank you. We will relay that. I think what we heard is, and what I can offer, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but very quickly, data is how they allocate officers. So we can, for example, if we advocate for more officers, but the data says that they are needed in Brooklyn, then they're going to Brooklyn, even if it was the Upper West Side that championed the request. So it is the way in which they allocate their staff, both on a macro level of citywide and on a micro level here on the precincts. That's how the data gets turned into action, at least as far as I know. And then the officers may have said some more things about that. Let me go to the next speaker, who is Sam Luber, followed by Nina Kelleher, or if I mispronounced, I'm sorry, followed by Chris Caldwell. So Sam Luber, unmute, please. Is Sam still with us?
I'm not seeing him on the.
Okay, Nina Keller or Kelleher, Kelleher. Although I don't have an address for her. Let's go to
Not
Chris.
seeing it.
Nope, Chris Caldwell. That was the other guy's timer. No luck. Helene Mandelker, excuse me for pronunciation. Helene Mandelker.
Yep, she's there. She's free.
Okay.
Yes, hi, I'm here. Yes, thank
Welcome
you.
to Community Board 7.
Thank you very much. My question, and it's not really, I think it's a forefront, a global question. So I go into, I live in the 24th precinct. I go into CVS and the toothpaste is locked up. Ice cream locked up for a long time, but everything's basically being locked up. And my understanding is that this is considered shoplifting and that these goods are being brought outside of the area to bodegas, to other stores. And so my question is, how, as a community, do we sort of cross the borders and go into and work with different areas and different communities to address, and this, some may say this is a quality of life issue, but it has a negative impact, I think, on anyone who comes into our neighborhood and sees that everything is under lock and key. So how do we transport this? How do the community boards? How does the police department? How do the business districts work amongst us, work together? Because this is a global issue. It's not an Upper West Side issue. It's across the city. It started in the Bronx and it's worked its way down.
Thank you for that testimony. Obviously, we will consider all of these things when we're voting on budget priorities, as well as other actions that we hope to take. Thank you. We've heard from those two folks. Olivia Killingsworth, followed by John, is it June, J-U-N? Followed by Melinda Thaler. So those are the next three.
Hi, thanks for allowing me to speak. I'll try to be brief. I just want to address some of what's been said earlier, just try to throw some facts out there. Somebody mentioned that the Upper West Side for Safer Streets Facebook group has 15,000 members, but I just wanted to point out again that the Upper West Side has about 220,000 residents. So it may not necessarily be representative of.
You know, I'm going to interrupt for just a second here. I would really like this not to be a dialogue of the two groups talking about each other, but about the issues that we're confronting as a community. So if you could pivot to your next point on that. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think that is something that we need to have it to make sure that our dialogue is the kind of dialogue we need.
Okay, thanks. Well, regardless, so regarding the point about the Upper West Side doing its fair share to accommodate the homeless, I just wanted to cite some statistics. These are pre-pandemic, but according to the stats, but just before the pandemic, we housed about 1.9% of the city's total shelter population. But in terms of our representative share of the total population of the city, we are about 2.2% of the city's total population. So to me, that actually seems like about right, perhaps even lower than perhaps our fair share if you're going based on the percentage of the total population. And I just wanted to echo what others have said, that not all of the clients at the temporary shelters are drug addicts. Many of them are dealing with other challenges along with homelessness, but that doesn't include substance abuse disorder. And I would also say that folks who are in recovery need stability. And so if people want to support services and help these folks, even if they're going to be moved out of this neighborhood, one thing we could consider is encouraging our council member to support this legislation that was recently introduced in the city council called INT 146.
I need you to wrap up, please.
This would increase the value of city issued housing vouchers so that shelter residents can go find their own housing and get up on their feet and go live on their own outside the shelter. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Signed on. Heard and answered. Signed on. Thank you.
Okay, John June, to be followed by Melinda Thaler. John June, floor is yours. Do we have John June?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. Go ahead.
Hey, great. So recently DHS announced that they were planning a permanent shelter up in the Upper West Side. And so given the fact, and again, these are statistics, and I would like to see the CB7 board really dig in and find out what the true statistics are, because it seems like different groups are using different statistics. But I've read and I've seen where the Upper West Side is actually in the top 10 in shelter beds in New York City. And so given that the Upper West Side is in the top 10 and that there are other communities in New York City like Upper East Side and Soho that have less than 100 or 0 beds, I wanted to know if the community board is going to be opposing this new permanent shelter, because we are already doing our fair share. Just as the last caller just mentioned, there is the fair share criteria in New York. And if we're already in the top 10, it would seem to make sense that a permanent shelter should go into a community that has much fewer beds than the Upper West Side. So I just wanted to find out if the CB7 is going to be investigating that and potentially opposing that given those facts.
We certainly will be investigating it. I think it's important to know that the Department of Homeless Services does not consult with community boards before making decisions like that. I think that's all I should say right now. Our elected officials also heard you, so we can take that under advisement. But that's, you know, that's as much as I know right now. Let's go on to our next caller.
This is the one, and it'll come in front of the community board. It'll be the 30-day review. So if it's permanent, it gets the review. Just we have no idea when. That's the piece that no one knows.
And by review, it means it's really notice.
Advisory, yeah.
Yeah.
They have a hearing on it, and I expect you will.
For sure.
Yeah.
But it's important to know that they've made all their decisions by the time they notify us.
Yeah, same. Thank you.
Okay, so I think Melinda Thaler is next. Is that correct? Anybody paying attention to what I said? Because I'm not. Melinda Thaler, followed by, let me see, who hasn't spoken? Oz Ben Ami. So Melinda Thaler, are you with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
I sure can.
Okay. I wanted to talk about some of the issues regarding, you know, protecting our community. Some of these issues relate to the presence of the shelter that is in operation at the Lucerne, but whether or when that shelter might get relocated, we're going to have other shelters, and these issues apply globally. When some of the initial safety concerns arose with the arrival of the new population, there was a significant alarm about housing of sex offenders in close proximity to playgrounds and schools. And we had a meeting of parents of PS 87 and PS 9, and we were told at the beginning of that meeting, and I'm quoting here by our elected representative, Helen Rosenthal, that there are no level 2 or higher sex offenders in the shelters. And she said she wishes she could promise that there will be no new ones coming in, but she wanted to be very clear that she cannot, and this is her language, cannot guarantee that we won't get new sex offenders placed in as new residents in the shelter. Comparing and contrasting that, there is now the proposal to transfer the clients of the Lucerne down to Community Board 1 setting. And they have received a report from their community liaison officer. And they said that they want to assure the community that their safety is of the utmost protection and that the shelter will not accept any new residents in addition to the 238 that are currently housed there, and the community will not house any sex offenders in that shelter. So it presents to me a crisis and a failure in leadership when the leaders of Community Board 1 are able to protect their community adequately. And then our elected representatives are telling us that they wish they could do that, but their hands are tied. It suggests to me that our leaders are either ignorant of how to secure that protection for us, or simply unwilling to do it because it doesn't meet with, you know, their philosophy. But we need to make sure that our elected representatives have the same tools and resources to protect our community that the elected representatives in Community Board 1 have.
You know, I'm sorry, you know, I have answered this question repeatedly. I'm going to try one more time. You hear the frustration in my voice, but Project Renewal, which is at the Lucerne now, there are absolutely no, to anyone's knowledge, no sex offenders that are located there, none. So when they are getting moved, unfortunately, to Community Board 1, their population will not change.
You clearly misheard my question because I said I understand there are no sex offenders there, but I was focused on your guarantee that you could not guarantee that no new sex offenders would be brought in. You were saying that new ones would come in and that you couldn't
hold on, folks. No one gets anywhere by shouting over each other. I think the council member was trying to finish her answer. I will allow a brief follow-up just in case, but then we got to move on.
So again, there never were any sex offenders at the Lucerne. And I assured everyone, because DHS said to me definitively that there would be no sex offenders at the Lucerne.
Okay, we're going to move on. We're going to take a slight pivot. I jumped over somebody earlier on in the list because he wasn't applicable to the police, and I apologize that Zach Campbell from the Museum of Natural History has been with us all this time, wants to give an update, and I owe it to him to call on him. So Zach, sorry for the delay. Please welcome to Community Board 7 and please give your report.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Excellent. So I'll be very brief. Most of you know me by now. My name is Zach Campbell. I'm the community liaison at the American Museum of Natural History. Just a brief update tonight on the Gilder Center project. At the last meeting in September, I noted that the excavation and foundation work on the project was ongoing, including some of the mechanical, electrical, plumbing work, as well as some of the underslab conduit and infrastructure installation. As a quick update to where we are now, the concrete slab on grade in the north and southeast portions of the site are complete. 90% of the excavation and foundation work is complete. Approximately 75% of the concrete portion of that, the slab on grade, is complete. The remaining excavation and foundation work includes finishing some of the foundation walls, pouring the remainder of the slab on grade, which we anticipate completing in the middle of this month. We also anticipate that a tower crane will arrive on site later this month. This is to help us transition into the superstructure portion of the project. This will likely occur over a single Saturday, and as of right now, it's looking like that will be the 17th. Once that's finalized and we have the logistics of what that entails, we'll share it with the community board as well as with some of the other folks that we communicate with in our task force for the immediate neighborhood. As we transition into superstructure, we anticipate that there will be an increase in the number of concrete trucks as well as some rebar formwork shoring deliveries. We'll continue to provide updates as the project progresses. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or check our website at amnh.org and look for the Gilder Center link. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. I'm going to now call on Oz Ben-Ami, OZ Ben-Ami. Are you with us?
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Sure can. Welcome to Community Board 7.
All right. Yeah, so this is my first meeting, so thank you for taking my chat. So I just want to say, you know, I'm really sort of disappointed to hear the discussion about, let's push, homeless members of our community to other, places. Let's push them. I mean, these are people we're talking about, not, some kind of refuse that we want to get rid of. So, just wanted to make that point. And second of all, I do understand that there are real concerns about safety and security. So my real question is, what can we do constructively? And frankly, it doesn't really matter whether we do this, in Community Board 7, or whether people get moved elsewhere. I think, what can we do constructively, to help those people who do have needs, whether it's, rental vouchers or mental health support, so what can we do as individuals as well as through our various levels of government, and I'd just love to hear, what I can do and what, we can do as citizens and as, organized government. Thank you.
I'm happy for the electeds to take that question, or I can, there are organizations that are trying to meet the needs of the folks in those populations. The best thing to do is to be in touch with the service provider at each location, who will have the best idea about what is needed in each place. I'm looking at Helen and Linda and Brad and wondering if I did it right, or is there more to say?
Nope, that's it. And I think some of the groups, if they want, can put their contact information in the chat. And
Very good.
by the way, there's a fly in my office. So apparently I've been criticized for waving my arms around. There's a very large fly that I'm trying to kill, so.
Very good. Thank you, Council Member. We have time for just a couple more. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to call on anybody more than once. So those who've been called upon, that's going to be our opportunity for this meeting. But Linda Breskin and Merle McEldowney have not been called upon, and so I will call upon them now, and then we're going to wrap this up.
Linda is unmuted.
Thank you. Linda Breskin, are you with us?
I'm there. Can you hear me?
Sure can. Get going.
Okay, so my question is first of all, I had put this in the chat. I didn't know you were going to call on me. That the homeless, I said that I was so sorry that he experienced that. There are some bad apples in every group and get too passionate and go overboard. I do believe you deserve better services where you are. I hope you get better job training. I hope whoever has psychiatric challenges gets the help they need. I hope that somehow the city or the state provides that for you wherever you go, because obviously we're over challenged here. It's too dense, and it's just sad. It's just really, really sad. I had a question, is if the police can do anything about public lewdness. I wanted to know something about the turnaround, that if someone does commit a crime, how quickly are they back on the street? And again, I wish you luck and everybody else who's in Lucerne, wherever you do go. And again, I'm on the Upper West Side safer streets because I've witnessed masturbation on my block, urination. I've been panhandled. I've been followed with my granddaughter while I walk on the streets, which is very, very upsetting because they're looking at her, not me. I'm a grandma. So this is a hard situation for all of us. And so again, can the cops do anything about public lewdness?
I think you heard the Captain Zuber and Inspector Yaguchi say, call 311, call 911. That's the only chance that you will have for them to both take action with respect to that conduct and to make sure that that conduct is recorded so that it counts against our statistics for when we have allocations of staffing and resources.
Well, I'm not quite sure that they actually do something about it. So
that's
I've
beyond my
actually
ability to
been
answer.
handled and told that this person who was threatening me had a gun, and I actually walked away and I called up the cops and they said, well, they were just panhandling. We can't do anything about it. So I walked into the precinct and I spoke to another officer and he apologized to me. But I will tell you that at the moment that occurred, nothing happened about it. But let's put that aside and let's focus on the larger issue that there are people who have seriously, emotional challenges, addiction problems, homeless problems. They're trying to get back on the feet. And somehow we as a city and as a state, as a country have failed them.
Thank you for that. And there have been some things in the chat that talk about the experience at CB1. I will not compare myself to my colleague at CB1. She's doing a terrific job with her community. I will say this, that a lot of the things that they're trying to plan out in advance, we had to try to backfill without notice because the placement was made without advanced opportunity to create the things that some of the folks in our community have eventually come up with. The Goddard Riverside programs, for example, which were directly relevant to the needs that some people saw. But beyond that, that's probably all I should say about that. And instead, I should stop talking and call on Merle McEldowney, who is going to be our last speaker. With apologies to Peter, I see your hand, but we already gave you one, so I've got to let you, got to hold to that. Ashley Gonzalez, I'm sorry. We're not going to be able to take you tonight. Merle? Merle McEldowney, you were just here a second ago.
I'm here, I'm trying to unmute him at this.
It's a Herman, thanks.
All right, sorry, Sorry.
What's happening?
I see. I had to do that. No, I'm watching. I thank you all for being here and conducting this meeting this way.
Hey, Merle, go ahead.
Oh, can you hear me?
Sure can.
Oh, okay. I have nothing to say. That's just fine. I'm just watching. Okay.
Well, I wanted everybody to be brief, but that was, that's a record. Okay. Well, I've said too much, so I'm going to stop talking. Rich has his hand up. Shelley has his hand up. I'm going to call on you in that order, and then we're going to see about where we are. Rich, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's not a discussion we should have now, but at some point we should have a discussion about what our policy should be for removing people from meetings. There were a few people, a few board members privately messaged me asking me to remove a few people from the meeting. And it's not a decision I feel I should make on my own, nor should any one or two other board members, unless someone's being egregiously offensive. And I don't know what the answer is. I have a lot more sympathy for Mark Zuckerberg than I did a few hours ago. I still don't have much sympathy for him, but it is something we should think about and think about what our process should be. It's often a split-second decision. and we don't have the luxury either of having the entire board vote or for the chair to be able to pay attention and see all of the posts. So just something for people to think about.
Thank you, Rich. And let's put that on the agenda for steering. I know we got a full night that night, but let's spend some time talking about that. Unfortunately, when I'm trying to, just not as an excuse, but an explanation, I'm looking at the Brady Bunch here. I'm also looking at my email because some people are trying to have trouble getting into the meeting and need to email. I'm also looking at my text when people tell me, for example, that this one or that one has joined our meeting, so I need to find them and so forth. So it's hard for me to see some of the aggressive things that have been said in chat. And so I think the answer is going to be that we should talk about it at steering, and that we should and that we should deputize somebody to have that authority with, as you say, with guidelines, but able to act independently without me or without so forth. Anyway, so let's work on that together. I appreciate the comment. I share it. You heard me earlier this evening try to say, try to call us to a different level of civility. Obviously, that didn't work. Thank you. And Shelley, I think you may end up with the last word. Shelley, you do have to unmute.
We would be remiss if we did not approve the minutes.
Oh,
So I'd like to
Julian.
move to approve the minutes of board minutes of September.
Thank you.
Second.
There's a second. Can we do this by acclamation? Is a voice vote sufficient?
Aye.
All those say aye?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Aye, aye, aye.
Aye, aye, aye. Okay. So
And then the motion to adjourn.
Yep.
I think that's, Madge, you have your hand up, or are you voting on the minutes?
Oh, no.
Okay. Madge has an eager hand raising function on her computer. Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
I think we're adjourned. Thank you all very much. Appreciate everybody's patience.
Thank
Good
you.
job.
Good
Thank
job.
you, Mark.
Hey,
Everybody.
BCI Wednesday night. See you all there.
Very good.